Mr. Red.
Here.
Mr. Roth.
Present.
Mr. Neely.
Here.
Dr. Crawl.
Present.
Dr. Cross.
Present.
And Mrs. Lehman.
I declare the 2023 levy hearing open. The levy hearing is open for the purpose of answering questions or hearing comments from the public on the 2023 levy resolution. Ms. Kolowski has provided fund balances for fiscal year 24, truth and taxation. All balances are from the end of fiscal year 23 on June 30th, 2023. Valerie will include these numbers in the minutes of this meeting, and Ms. Kolowski is here to present the numbers and answer any questions.
Nothing else.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
You should be.
I heard that, Dave. Okay, so for the first time last year at the levy hearing, we were told that we should be showing or sharing our fund balances in each of the funds for our most recent end fiscal year, which of course was on June 30th. So in the ed fund, we had a remaining balance of $24,151,319. In the O&M fund, $9,554,199. The bond and interest, we had $154,105. Transportation, we had $717,670. In the IMRF, $718,566. Working cash, $3,487,344. Excuse me. And in the tort fund, $423,082. Any questions?
Would there be any questions or comments for the board or Ms. Kolowski? There being no audience questions or comments, I do bring a motion, the 2023 levy hearing to a close. So I need a motion to close.
So moved. Support.
Dr. Cross.
Yes.
Mr. Red.
Yes.
Mr. Breaker.
Yes.
Dr. Crawl.
Yes.
Mr. Neely.
Yes.
And Mr. Roth.
Yes.
We will now call to order our regular Board of Education meeting. So Valerie, please call the roll on that meeting.
Mr. Roth.
Present.
Mr. Red.
Here.
Mr. Breaker.
Here.
Dr. Cross.
Present.
Dr. Crawl.
Present.
And Mr. Neely.
Here.
With that, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We now have some recognitions of excellence is what our agenda says, and so I will let Dr. Smock take over with that.
Yes, thank you everyone for being here tonight. We have several different recognitions, student recognitions, staff recognitions tonight. So it's a great night to be in our board meeting. We're going to start off with our student recognitions, and hopefully all those, I know some of them are waiting out in the hallway right now because they probably don't all fit in here. But hopefully all the students and coaches can stick around for all the recognitions, and then after those are completed, they're welcome to stay or go. But it'd be great, I think, if everyone heard all of the recognitions before you left, because there's a lot of great things we're celebrating tonight. We're going to start off with band, our 2A Illinois State Championship Band, and I'm going to introduce MHS Athletic Director Scott Jones, who's going to get us kicked off, introducing some coaches. Mr. Jones.
Bring him on in.
Good evening, everybody. And thank you so much for having us out here today. We've had an amazing fall. Our athletics, our activities, everything going on at the high school has just been a booming place all fall. This winter is kicking off as another fantastic one with all these great accomplishments. I love watching all the kids smiling, but one of the great things about my job is I get to see our student athletes and our activities when they start in the fall and when they start in the winter and the spring, and how amazing it is to watch a group of individuals become a team, to watch them in the oppressive heat of August or for July for the marching band and August for our teams, watching them work through that and overcome that, watching them have their ups and downs and their ebbs and flows of their programs and their seasons, but watching how they do that. They come together and do these amazing things while they represent their families, themselves, our school, but also our community. And so it's really a neat part, and I always tell everybody all the time I have the greatest job in all of 709 because I get to have a front row seat to this. Yeah, and it's really an amazing thing to be part of. So without any further hesitation here, I would love to start. We're going to start with our Morton High School Marching Band. Our directors, Mr. Hatter, Ms. Fitzpatrick, are going to come talk a little bit about the kids and the season and everything they've accomplished. So I'd like to welcome them first. Thank you.
Like Scott said, my name is Craig Hatter. I'm joined by the other co-band director, Ms. Katrina Fitzpatrick. We had a great season this year in terms of competition and growth as a band. Definitely took us to some new heights throughout the season. So, like Mr. Jones said, starting back in July, getting through the oppressive heat, and then kind of into the competitive year, we were able to move through all those challenges and reach the new success that was going into Bands of America competition, undefeated. We got through all of our more local competitions at Washington, Lincoln Way, Metamora, throughout the state of Illinois, and then into the Illinois State Grand Champions, where we repeated being state champions for 2 years in a row. We are the third school in the state of Illinois, the first I think this side of 80 to do that. So that is a huge accomplishment to these students that are here today as well as the rest of the band. Thank you. Then kind of moving into the more national level of competition, we went to St. Louis Bands of America. I've competed against schools from across the country. Won our class, we're able to compete at the highest level there before moving into the final kind of stage of our marching band season, that is Bands of America Grand National Competition. Again, out of 99 bands, Morton High School placed 18th, the highest ever in our history, as well as the highest score ever. So that's really a testament to these students that you see here today, the relationships that they've built together over their course, not just at Morton High School, but Morton Junior High as a part of the band, and then growing and continuing the success and the tradition of excellence that is the pride and performance that we have here in the Morton Bands program. So.
And in addition to our competitive season, something that was very important to Mr. Hatter and I when we took over the role as co-directors is we use the word family a lot in our band program. There's 170 students. It's imperative that we're a family in order for us to not just be competitive and be very good at it, but just live together for 4 months of the year and be still standing here in November. Or December, I guess it's December. So we worked really hard, and it was our goal for the students to have the experience that they expected and thrive and to build relationships, grow with their work ethic, and push themselves beyond where they thought they were capable. And we are very proud of the students who are here today and the students that are not able to be here this evening, as they are representing some of the best and brightest in the band program. And their accomplishments, just not competitively, but the growth that they've made as human beings. So if we could recognize the students for that. And of course, we would like to thank the board for all of your support that allows us to not just go out and travel to Indianapolis, St. Louis, but provide us the space and the facilities here for us to be successful. So we would like to thank the board and the administrators for all of the support that they've given the band through this season. And now I think it's our pleasure to introduce introduce who
Yeah.
we've brought here today. So obviously the band is 170. You would not fit in the room. So these students are leaders, seniors, and representatives of the group who've decided to share their evening with us. So first we'll start by introducing Drew, one of our drum majors this year.
Then we have Rachel, one of our other drum majors for the year.
Yeah. Lainey is our woodwind captain.
Charlie, one of our mellow section leaders.
Jake Darcy, one of our saxophone players and section leader.
Lizzie, part of our field crew.
Yes. And then we've also got Lee, one of our color guard captains.
Along with Clay, another captain.
Another leader in our color guard, we've got Olivia.
Tira or Nikki? Nikki, I'm sorry, there's twins. There's twins, I'm sorry. Nikki here, part of our tubas.
Okay, and then Avery, of course, one of our awesome flute players.
And then the person that cannot be quiet in the hallway. Zoe.
And here's the deal, I don't think we give freshman bass drum players enough credit. As having marched bass drum a season myself, let's hear it for Zuzu right there. Zuzu,
Yeah. I'm getting stuck with all the twins. Matt, one of our trumpet section leaders.
I like this.
Yeah.
And Connor, another one of our awesome field crew members.
Cameron, part of our field crew as well.
And we've got Kenny, one of the timpani player in the front ensemble.
Yes. If you're looking at the drum line, Titus is back there keeping time for us.
One of our percussion section leaders, we've got Moses right here.
And then last student of the evening, Levi, rounded off with the tallest in the band, I think. So there we go.
And then, of course, our assistant band director, Mr. Gonzalez, and then my husband, who wrote the show and works the brass line, Craig Fitzpatrick.
We can go around and
Yes.
thank you guys all. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Congratulations. Thank you so much. Well done.
Proud of all of you. Thank you so much. Great job. Super proud. Thank you. Thank you. Super proud. Thank you. Thank you so much. Are you 1 and 2? Okay, there we go. Congratulations. Thank you. All right. Congratulations. Thank you. Guys, awesome job. Thank you. Thanks so much. Congratulations. Thank you so much. Hey, congratulations. Hey, make a difference. Awesome. Thank you again. Oh, yeah. Thank you so much. Hey, good job.
Thanks to you. I know it's very tough. Our next group we'd like to continue with is, we're going to start with Coach Zeller along with 2 members of our cross-country team. When you talk about the oppressive heat, obviously you see in the summer our runners out there, but you also see them in the 10-degree cold, working year-round, doing things, running around town, always working out there in the hallways at Morton High School, all the time working out. And again, great representatives of our school, our community. So I want to let Mr. Zeller talk a little bit more. This is Joe Zeller, please.
Hello. My name is Joe Zeller. I'm the coach of both the guys and girls cross-country programs at high school. I'm here to talk about these 2 gentlemen over here, Josh Weeks and Jonas Withridge. So the reason that they're being recognized here tonight is because of the individual accomplishments they have this year. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about those first. So Jonas has a PR from this season of 15 minutes for 3 miles, which is pretty quick. He ended up finishing 14th at the state meet. Over the past 4 years, though, for the cross-country team, he has been an all-conference runner for us every year. So he's accomplished that first team all-conference 4 times, and then all-state for the first time this year. Standing next to him is Josh Weeks. If you thought 15 minutes was fast, 14:56 is a little bit faster. It's his PR. He was 19th this year at the state meet. He has been first team all-conference all 4 years that he's run with us, and was the Mid-Atlantic Conference champion for the past 2 years as well. And he's been all-state both this year and last year. However, for both of these guys, if you would have asked them how this cross-country season went, I have to bet you money that they probably would not have said anything about their individual accomplishments. I bet you they tell you about what we did as a team. So they've been part of some pretty good teams. Their first year on the team as freshmen, COVID year, they won the Shazam championships, which is like the pseudo state that year. But since then, they got third and fifth. Some really good teams that they've been on and been leaders for. During that time as well, they accumulated 3 regional titles, 3 sectional titles, and 4 conference titles. We were undefeated in conference since they've been on the team. And I think a lot of that is due just with who they are as people, the leaders that they are as well. We're going to be missing them obviously once they graduate. Josh is one of these guys who he's always going to give you his best effort every time. Sometimes like almost too much of his best effort, like he's angry at the ground kind of. And Jonas, he's one of these. We had a great conversation this year about what he's willing to do for the team. He's not out there running for the coaches. He's not doing things because of his parents. It's those guys that he's representing. And so they've both grown into leadership roles during their time with us, both in how they've run, but also socially leaders as well. They've hosted dinners at their house. They're a big component of just how the culture of the team is shaped. One of the favorite things I've already told you about Jonas and just how he made that realization about running for the team. That was kind of his driving force. But one of my favorite stories about Josh, we had this leadership group this year. We talked about the love languages and what they were. And if you know Josh, this might be a slightly surprising thing, but I love watching him give hugs to each of his teammates before the races, just because he wanted to show how much he cared, right? And so, I'm going to miss these guys because they brought what they brought to the team, but what I miss most about them is just how they cared for and loved their teammates along the way as well. Great year for them, great year for the team. And I appreciate you guys giving us a chance to come here and kind of talk about them and recognize them. So thank you.
So proud of you. Thank you. We're proud of you.
15 minutes for 2 miles.
I'm pretty sure you can beat me when I'm riding my bicycle.
Thank you for coaching.
I love it. Thanks, Coach. You got 40 more laps to go around. Congratulations. Super proud of you. Thanks for representing. Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
I know. Wasn't that much?
Thanks for representing.
Thank you.
Some of our teams in basketball and other activities tonight. We have a lot of them with us. First of all, thank you to a lot of our board members and admin for the support this year. I know I saw a lot of you guys at home games and at the state tournament cheering this on. I know last year when we were in here with our junior high teams, I know Dr. Sander asked how we plan to improve on 2 state trophies. My first thought was congratulations would have been fine. We had it, but it kind of kept us hungry, and as coaches, we were constantly talking about, okay, how can we take and improve on this? We're doing a lot of great things in the junior high. We knew we had to get hungry for our high schoolers to be able to do that. We're very lucky to have such a supportive community for this team to be able to play in front of. I know we had a lot of family and friends, current and former teachers that came there, coaches from other Morton teams, district admin, a lot of our camp families were there at the state tournament and throughout the season. It was just awesome to have that support for these girls and what they deserve. The state trophy that we had and that we earned was the highest finish of any team in the Mid-Illini that has ever gone through. No other team has ever earned a state trophy while in the conference. We had a lot of memories and accolades that we can always look back on, including also 3 All-Staters. We had Carly Whitaker on first team, Gracie Junis and Anna Roberts both made second team All-State. We also had the Area Player of the Year, Gracie Junis. And then Carly and Tyler were also named to the all-area team. We had 4 all-conference members. Every starter on our team was either on the academic all-state team or an academic All-American, which is incredible to be able to say about our team. It just kind of tells you how well-rounded our team is. You should be very proud of the way the team represented our schools and our community throughout the season. We had a lot of comments from other officials or other teams, other coaches, just complimenting us on our sportsmanship and talking about the team. It was easy to root for our team because of how nice of kids we had. Okay, so when you shake their hands tonight, make sure to congratulate them for their state trophy, but also make sure to congratulate them for the way that they showed the community and just kind of what we're all about here, okay? So this is our 3A state 4th place volleyball team. Woo. All right, so again, like we said, some of them are not with us. We'll still read their name though to recognize they were on the team with us. Tonight we have Leah Kempf, Claire Cerisa, Ella Durbin, Harper Struby, and Gracie Junis, Bryn Fritz, Tyler Matson, Jana Jones, Hannah Newkirk, Kylie Berg, Emma Belsley, Rebecca Stock, Abby Van Minnen, Ruby Brubaker, and Anna Roberts, Carly Whitaker. We had assistant coach Courtney Cox, and then with us tonight we have assistant coach Emma Odom.
So proud of you.
Thank you.
Congratulations on that. Thank you so much. Thanks for being a great representative. Appreciate it. Thank you so much. Congratulations. Thank you. Awesome. Congratulations.
We have one more recognition we'd like to present. Coach Gillette. Coach Gillette. Hey, come on up. So, if we would. Carrie.
Good evening, my name is Carrie Gillette. I am the director of Morton Red Wings. This year is our first year that Red Wings had a bowling team in our district. In years past, we've always participated in basketball and track. And just meeting with our athletes and some of the parents discovered that maybe bowling might be a little bit more inclusive. So with the wonderful support of the admin in the district, we moved to bowling this year. We had a total of 22 athletes on our bowling team this year, ranging in ages from 8 years of age until they can play up until they're 22 years of age. We had 11 of our athletes participate at regionals. 3 of our athletes participated in sectionals, and 1 athlete made it to the Special Olympics state tournament, which was held at Landmark in Peoria. Miss Maggie Getz. Maggie is a freshman at Morton High School. She had to have a gold medal in both regionals and sectionals in order to make it onto state, and she received a 4th place medal at state. That was the entire state of all the Special Olympics organizations, so not just school districts. So I believe there was over 200 agencies that participated at the Special Olympics tournament December 2nd. So Maggie did a wonderful job. She represented the district very well and was wonderful to all of the other athletes. She also was asked to recite the Special Olympics athlete oath during the opening ceremonies of that tournament. So congratulations, Maggie, you did a great job.
Twice a mine.
Twice mine too. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Maggie's a hug relationship.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay, at this time, it's my pleasure to welcome Ms. Deidre Ripka, principal of Morton High School, to the podium. I want to publicly announce Ms. Ripka, as she has recently been named Principal of the Year for the Central Illinois Valley region, which is a 4-county region in Central Illinois. Her hard work, her dedication, her leadership at Morton High School has earned her this award. And I think back when I first came to the district 17 years ago, and met her for the first time as a guidance counselor, or we don't say guidance counselor anymore, a school counselor. Just an outstanding person. First impression was she was destined to leadership. She was involved in conversations and decisions that the administrators were in, and I recognized that right away, and just so proud of her and her performance, her dedication to Morton High School. She's a vital part of Morton High School, but she's also a very important part of our district administrative team that meets on a weekly basis here, and just can't say enough great things about Mrs. Ripka. So congratulations to Ms. Ripka. It's a very well-deserved award.
I'll just say, like, I can't do this on my own. I have a great staff at the high school, and I couldn't do it without them. So I'm super fortunate to have them here and to have the support of the board and the district office. I'm just happy for this opportunity and look forward to continuing to lead.
Well said, well said.
Thanks.
Oscar.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. You could have just sat down with her.
Mrs. Ripka will now be in competition for the statewide honor of Principal of the Year for the entire state of Illinois. So there's a process for that. So congratulations to her and good luck in that process. I think she's got a great shot at that. Next up, we have a special recognition that's not on our agenda tonight. That's because it was a surprise. So for that, I'd like to welcome to the podium Mr. Simon Campworth from Peru Elementary District, here representing the Illinois Association of School Boards for a special recognition. And I'll turn the podium over to you.
Thank you, Superintendent Smock, and thank you, Morton, for allowing me to be here today. Yes, I'm Simon Campworth Jr. I'm a resident of Peru, Illinois, and I'm on the board at the Peru Elementary School District 124. And I proudly serve as an officer of the Illinois Association of School Boards, now in the past president role. A couple weeks ago, we had our delegate assembly where our officer transition took place. And first off, I'm so glad I'm here tonight. My intent was to come before our conference, but my board meeting was the same as yours. So wonderful that I got to come tonight to watch all this wonderful things and all the accolations that have happened tonight. So congratulations to Morton District 709. But tonight I'd like to give recognition and thanks to you, to President Bracker and the board of 709 for your commitment to the Illinois Association of School Boards, but more importantly, your support that you gave Tom Neely in his years as being an officer of the association. Without your support, we would not be able to then go into that role that we have both been in. So I have tonight a certificate of appreciation for Morton Board, as well as I also have a certificate specifically to Tom Neely, and thank him for his 16 years of being on the Illinois Association of School Board of Directors, with the last 6 being an officer. I had the absolute honor to follow Tom as an officer. I was his vice president, and I would not have been able to show success that we had these last 2 years without Tom being my mentor. And I want to thank him for not only his friendship, but what you do for the Morton School District, but what you've done for the state of Illinois and the students. So, Tom, thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you for the Merry Christmas.
You too, my friend. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Superintendent.
I mean, go around the circle now.
Mr. Neely?
No way.
Yes, yes, thank you. Well, thank you, thank you.
I would just say thank you to Simon and to my colleagues on the board at IASB. They talked earlier about a family, and our board has been a family from the standpoint of the Illinois School Board Association. And what I'm going to miss is being with them so many times in the years during the year because of all of the friendships but most important, what we collectively have done to make a difference for education in Illinois. And I know we're in good hands with Simon and Mark and the people to follow. So they caught me by surprise tonight. I didn't. Thank you, and thank you to my board.
Thank you, Tom, for your service. Okay, with that, we'll move on to audience presentation. This is the only time set aside for audience presentations. The Board of Education will take all presentations under consideration and respond at the latest by the end of the next regular Board of Education meeting. Please limit your comments to 5 minutes. Participants are expected to conduct themselves with civility and respect and follow the guidelines outlined in Board Policy 830. Visitors to and conduct on school property. Further information about public participation in the Board of Education meeting can be found in Board Policy 2230. Before we begin our public comments, I have a brief statement about the recent events that occurred at our meetings. We've had a group of people attend many of our board meetings this year who have come to advocate for dignity, respect, and anti-bullying campaigns in our schools. And we are in favor of these principles and continue to work to create an atmosphere of respect. However, many of the same people have called for the removal of board members and administrative due to their religious beliefs. They have disrespectfully walked out while others were speaking, made hateful comments to others, and most recently verbally accosted a parent who was attempting to leave in peace. In our foyer, as that parent was leaving our meeting, members of this group screamed obscenities at the parent, calling him a lying sack of middle-aged fat white man and other insults on his way to his car. This type of behavior is in violation of Policy 830 and will not be tolerated on school district grounds. With any further violations, we will begin to prohibit violators from attending our meetings. This is everyone's only warning. Tonight, we have a police officer present so people may feel safe as they come and go. We will not have, that will not happen. There will not be any outbursts, there will not be any clapping, or this.
We were allowed to clap and
So we will take a recess.
at the last meeting.
We will take a recess.
Big and
We
swerve.
will take a recess.
It's a violation of our rights.
It is not a
First Amendment
violation of your rights.
Yes, it is.
It will not happen. We are gonna bring order back to these meetings, and we're gonna treat people civilly and respectfully.
That's right.
And
That's right. We weren't.
No,
kids.
no, ma'am.
And neither were
No, ma'am.
marginalized kids. We're here for kids.
no, ma'am.
If I get kicked out, I'm gonna sue. So.
Okay. Joe, can you please call our first speaker?
All right, first speaker will be Dennis Schlappe.
Good evening. I want to add my voice to congratulations to Tom Neely. I had a daughter, played softball that Tom coached for a long time, and appreciate them a lot. But I've been a resident of Morton all my 71 years, and consequently I attended Morton schools all those years. And I view that fact as a gift and a blessing for which I am very thankful. My wife Carolyn taught in Morton, and we raised 3 children here. We've had 3 grandchildren educated at Grundy School. One of them is now in junior high. And we have great respect for Mr. Saunders and the excellent staff at Grundy School. I've always appreciated the fact that Morton schools support strong historical morals while leaving religious education in the capable hands of our families and churches. I'm grateful for the men and women like yourselves whose leadership has provided such high-quality education here. I have a great deal of respect for Dr. Kroll. She is a godly, generous, and compassionate woman. She is intelligent and sacrificial in her care for others. Strangely, she has been accused of being a woman of prayer. That's not a characteristic to be ashamed of, nor is it a characteristic to be spurned by others. Prayer was one of the most notable characteristics of Jesus. I mention Jesus only because more than once his name has been mentioned by other speakers as though there is either more than one Jesus or as if there is confusion regarding his identity. I personally spent more than 35 years in pastoral ministry, and I believe I'm qualified to provide some biblical insight. Jesus is God. He left the glory and perfect holiness of heaven to sacrificially give his life so that those who believe in him can have eternal life. He prepared the way through his own resurrection. While on earth, Jesus dined with religious outsiders. He gave hearing to the deaf, he gave sight to the blind, he gave strength to the lame, and he reached out to touch untouchable lepers. On more than one occasion, he restored life to the dead. At the same time, he challenged religious zealots to humility. He called them all, outsiders and zealots alike, to repentance and urged them to stop sinning and live pure lives. He came to do his Father's will and challenged all others to do the same. Never once did he say, just do your own thing. That's the Jesus of the Bible. Now, some of his most well-known words are from the Beatitudes, and I'd like to remind you of those words as they're recorded in Matthew's Gospel. Jesus taught them, saying, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be satisfied. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall receive mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when others revile you and persecute you and utter all kinds of evil against you falsely on my account. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward is great in heaven, for so they persecuted the prophets who were before you." That's the Jesus of the Bible. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to introduce him to you here tonight.
Okay. Will be followed by David Griffin, and then Tammy Woodmans, who will follow.
Hey, how you doing? I've never spoken anything like this. I moved here about 7 years ago from Boys Town, north side of Chicago. Whole reason I moved here was because of you guys' schools and the safety of your community. And if I say anything offensive or anything, I don't mean to. Over the years, I've stepped on toes and didn't mean to just because it was normal to me. So I just wanted to talk about my kids tonight. I want to take the opportunity to address the board regarding my 2 children at Grundy Elementary School. My son Triton was overdosed on 3 months worth of his birth mother's antipsychotics and mood stabilizing medications when he was 16 months old, resulting in weeks-long coma and a complete reset of his mind and development. Diagnosed with autism, my son's gone to Levy Brown, Lincoln, now Grundy, and both of the previous schools did their best, but my son's a real handful, much like his father. And my daughter Lila, she's adopted, not from me, was born with underdeveloped lungs, legs, and intestines. She's been at Grundy for many years, and she's gone from a chair to walking with braces to walking on her own. Her lungs have gotten so strong that she was able to have her trach removed from her throat not just 2 months ago. Lila still only has 6 inches worth of usable small intestine and wears an ostomy bag to school, which her nurse has to empty several times every school day. And despite a multitude of surgeries and absences due to the recovery time involved, Lila is only 1 year behind her brother, and because they're both the same age. Though I've not always understood the recommendations and directions given from Michael Saunders and his staff, with the support of Lindsay Franklin, they've succeeded where all the other schools failed. I'm the general manager of the Culvers in East Peoria. I've trained the management teams of all the local Culvers locations, including here in Morton. I lived here for like 7 years. The whole reason I moved here was the reputation of the city's safety and the well-run schools. I just want to say thank you for making the decision to make it pay off for the success of my 2 children who love their school and their teachers and their principal more than anything, except maybe each other. A couple days ago, I had some customers at my shop who were very excited about the possible ruination of Principal Saunders. I have never spoken in an environment like this, but I've always believed in speaking up when I have something worth saying. And I don't know if any of what these people were concerned about would affect, their plans would affect, but they're definitely filled with an alarming level of fanaticism in this discussing plans to destroy the principal of my children's school. Nobody asked me to do this. I wasn't even sure if it was a good idea. But when I saw all the cars outside and the officer waiting for us to come in, I knew I was probably doing the right thing. Whatever the problem is, I'm not sure. I don't know. I'm just sure that common ground can be found. And there are already too many places where adults are fighting over their own beliefs and about right and wrong and end up hurting a bunch of kids. And if you're here looking to solve a problem, I bet that solution doesn't have to involve taking the principal my 2 kids love and respect away from them. So that's all I really had to say. Thank you for your time and thank you for everything you guys do. I gotta get back to running my restaurant. If that's against the rules, I'm sorry, but I gotta go.
All right, Tammy, you're up, and followed by Heather McNeekin.
Well, as a Christian, Mr. Breaker, I am the one that had the incident in the parking lot. Mr. Fay, I'm trying not to share too much information about him, but we've had complaints involving Mr. Fay's family. I'll stop there. He followed us out as we left, and I did say some things I shouldn't have said because he indicated that the black child was a liar. And I'll stand with that child. I shouldn't have said the things I said, but by God, stand with the kids instead of Mr. Fay. That's the sickening part about this district. You're here for the kids, not for these bigots. You're not here for them. You have a job to do, and you're about to get sued. Every single one of you. It's about to happen. I've warned you. You and I, Mr. Smock, had a very good conversation. What's changed? I'm hoping something's changed. Extremists. If all you have here is some left-leaning bullies picking on white Christian leadership, then you need not worry. Justice will prevail, and there will be no disciplinary measures and no winning of lawsuits against them if we are making this up.
We aren't making it up, and that's why you guys decided not to speak at the last meeting. It was you, wasn't it, that whispered theatrics when we spoke? We're here for kids. This isn't about beliefs. This is about the law. We can agree. We don't think the same. It doesn't matter. At the last meeting, when those questions were not answered, it proved, you know that you're compromised legally. You know what's about to happen. The law has been broken. There is substantial evidence to prove many civil rights violations, to include many families. My kids aren't in this district. Do you think this is fun? I care about the kids. As a Christian, I will stand for what Christ did in my life and for others, rather than push people away because they don't worship the same way I do. I do not worship a hateful version, a perverse version of Jesus. Jesus was good. Jesus was inclusive. I would like to also say, Morton School Board leadership wouldn't stop responding if they were just dealing with leftist bullies. They're in legal peril, you know you are. Now, you can listen to the falsehoods and the cheering from the ignorant anti-democracy gang, or you can side with all children. You cannot do both. A school board's policies, by the way, let me say that Michael Saunders is responsible for his own whatever's going to happen to him. He did that. He didn't do it to my kids, not my white Christian kids, but he abused kids. A school board's policies and actions must abide by the laws set forth by the federal government, supported by the Constitution. Some in this community are so empty that they would spend their time trying to defend the use of the N-word, the F-word ending in T, touting it's not a hate crime. Here are some real examples of hate crimes that have happened in Morton School District. A black child was called the N-word, slave, and other racial slurs in Morton 709. That child was then assaulted in the lunchroom. It's on video. The assailant was sent home for the day. That was a hate crime. A black child wore a Black Lives Matter shirt. That child was assaulted and told, no, they don't. It was on video. It has been reported. There were no consequences for that assailant. That was a hate crime. A child was called the F word, ending in T, and gay. That child was then assaulted. That was a hate crime. The Establishment Clause is in the Constitution, and so is the Free Exercise Clause. Constitutional law experts say comments like the ones made by an extremist at the last meeting distorts the Supreme Court ruling, which said school employees could pray in a private capacity to themselves, near students, but not engaging them, certainly not leading them. They did not endorse displaying the Ten Commandments, nor did it allow for teaching or quizzing with predominantly Christian material during instructional time. Dr. Smock has acknowledged problematic happenings dealing directly with religious overreach. Isolated and in private capacity would not include Christian religious material being printed by public tax dollars, a perverse version of Christianity, and Christian materials put in public school backpacks. This actually happened at Grundy Public School. Board member Diane Kroll, Michael Saunders, and my neighbor all colluded to create a church atmosphere in our public school, a hateful version of Christianity. They ignorantly and arrogantly believe their extremist, perverse, hateful version of Christianity is all that matters, as I sit by my non-Christian friend who had to be subjected to your sickening version of Christianity.
Thank you, Tammy. All right, Heather is up, and then we'll be followed by, or she'll be followed by Nathan.
This is for the board. My name is Heather McMeekin, co-president of Peoria, Illinois Now. It was really good to see you validating your wonderful youth. I think pride in school is a good thing. But I also think understanding your history is important too. So I'm going to read an article written by one of your previous school board principals. Klansmen make grade school fine donation. Monday afternoon, Principal E.M. Ackerman of the grade school was called on the telephone and asked to give the fire drill of the school at 1:50 and to have the children assembled on one side of the school building. While this was an unusual request, it was complied with by Mr. Ackerman. At the appointed time, the children and teachers filed out of the building were assembled alongside the building. A closed car drove up and a half-dozen Klansmen in full regalia stepped from the car and made their way toward the assembled school people. One of their number stepped forth and addressed the gathering, briefly expressing the belief of the Klan in the schools and urging upon the children to be diligent in their studies, and closed his remarks with the presentation of a basketball, 2 goals, backstops, rule book, $5 in cash, etc. The school now has everything with which to play the game, with the exception of suits for the players. This was a mighty fine gift for the Klan to present to the school, and will be greatly appreciated by them. Mr. Ackerman said that it was all over so quickly that he had no opportunity to express the thanks of the school for the gift, and he has therefore asked this paper to append this expression to this article, to which we are glad to do so. Appreciation. On behalf of the boys of Morton School, I wish to thank the Knights of the Ku Klux Klan for the basketball equipment and money they saw fit to give us, assuring you that we are grateful to you for your kindness. I am very truly yours, Emery K. Ackerman, principal of the school. Then in October of 1923, on a Wednesday night, there was a cross burning at the high school and the grade school. I will just say that the shadow of that cross burning is a legacy that has not been addressed and still impacts your students in this culture today. You have a chance now to prove you're not racist. You have a chance to prove you want to do something different. You as a board could reach back to history and apologize for that offensive white supremacist terrorism. You could apologize to all the black folks who felt fear and were terrified by that. And a lot of them still walk present on this earth. So your apologies could actually help heal some racial trauma that your predecessors did in their time. We have been trying to warn you about problems you are doing in your time that someday history will hold you accountable. At the last meeting, there was an example of something that we call tokenism. Tokenism happens when a person with privilege uses an oppressed person to further oppression, either as a shield against criticism or as a bludgeon to knock down other oppressed people who try to rise up. We have a good example of this at the last meeting. There was a parent here who was using his black adopted child to basically hold him up as an example of why the principal couldn't be racist. We call that proximity. That is part of a racial microaggression or trope called my black friend. And a lot of white people hold it up and say, oh, I have a black friend or a black child, I can't be racist. But we know in racial justice circles that that actually is a sign that there is racial bias at play. And worse, those children have no say in being used like that. Another example of tokenism occurred whenever Saunders pulls out his picture of his queer family members, even though he has said that they are sinners, to children in your school district and their parents. And he is tokenizing them. Basically, he is saying, look, I approve. I'm not hateful to anti-queers. You know, I'm not anti-queer. I just think that they're sinners. But I love these people. That ain't love. That's not love. Don't call that love. Christians adopting black children. Now, sometimes that can be a wonderful thing, but I will also let you know, historically, that is what we call colonizing. And there is a movement in the evangelical church, amongst others, that transracial adoptions from overseas are a way of diversifying your school district. And honestly, as white as your school is, that's probably the only way you'll get a lot of black folks, because what black folks would want to move here if they had another option? You have a chance to do better. We ask you to speak up. Now, as far as what you presented about the board, and you denigrated only one side of that argument, we were subjected to having to watch black children being tokenized and called liars. We do not have to apologize for our passionate expression of defense of those children and their needs, nor do we have to sit here politely while our rights are being violated as we are subjected to racist and inappropriate prayers that are not appropriate in this body. You need to start doing better, follow the law, and we didn't call for you to leave or step down because you're a Christian. We called for you to leave or step down or be investigated because you violated students' rights. Stop doing it.
Thank you. Nathan? Nathan will be followed by Brian Grove.
Thank you for letting me come and speak tonight. I just want to basically stand up and thank you guys for all you do. It's not easy, I know, sitting there week after week, going through all the mundane details sometimes of the board. I know you guys are unpaid, and I just want to appreciate you guys for what you do. I also wanted to just share my personal story of why I'm here every week, standing up. The reason I come here every week, and the reason why I've chose District 709 as my school district for my children, is that when my family and I were looking for a place to settle, we knew that we didn't have the luxury of being able to afford private school education. We also were not able to, our schedules were not able to accommodate a homeschooling situation. So we knew that we wanted to settle in a school district that was able to provide a safe learning environment for our children. I have two wonderful girls in second grade, and Principal Saunders is their principal. They come home every day, well, not every day, they don't talk about Mr. Saunders, but they do talk about him quite often and how awesome he is as their principal. And that, when somebody is going after that principal, trying to get him to be fired or step down, I take that personally. So I am thankful for you guys standing behind him, and I encourage you to keep on standing. One last personal story. One big thing that hit me the very first night that I was here, and I went home, and my daughters asked me why I had to go to the meeting, and I didn't know what to say. I didn't know exactly what to tell them, but I figured the truth was the best thing. So I told them, because there are some people that are trying to have Mr. Saunders fired, and they cried because they love Mr. Saunders, and that made a big impression on me. And I know that I know that you guys are willing to stand for what's right, and I just encourage you to keep standing in this onslaught. Thank you.
Okay. Brian is up next, and then Leslie Shanks will follow.
My name is Brian Groth, a parent in the district. It's been a while since the FOIA showed the contents of Mr. Saunders' emails, and I wanted to highlight just one of the groups was contained within that he subscribed to. This isn't spam. He subscribed to this organization. It's at the bottom of the list. One of many that we found in the small sample from his email inbox. As we have said before, it was a staggering amount. So we just took a small slice, 1 month, limited number of terms, and we still got a trove of garbage. Illinois Family Institute, it's got a rosy sounding name, doesn't it? It's been around since, I believe, 1990. It's from Tinley Park. And the bottom line is they've been on the Southern Poverty Law Center's list of extremist anti-LGBT groups for over a decade. And I encourage you to go out and not take my word for it. Go look at some of the material that's been propagated by this group and its leaders. It's sickening. Just to point out a few things. They call for repeal of non-discrimination laws against LGBTQ community members. To move backwards, they organized to fight legalization of same-sex marriage. That's really why they existed, because they didn't want to see fair treatment for LGBTQ community. They promote gay shaming, and they propagate falsehoods about grooming and pedophilia. This is sickening. They compare homosexuality to Nazism. Look it up. Their leaders have said as such. And of course, anti-reproductive rights. We knew that would be on the list too. There's more. They're sickening. And that man in the back of the room subscribes to that. As I mentioned in my presentation to the board on September 5th, my child was repeatedly exposed to anti-LGBTQ hate speech in fourth grade, beginning in fourth grade at Grundy. At one point during a meeting with Mr. Saunders, during the 2022-23 school year, Mr. Saunders said to my child, "You and I both know that the gay references don't have a homosexual context." In an email shortly after that meeting, Mr. Saunders wrote, "There have been multiple occasions this year when classmates have used the word gay in a negative manner. Sometimes it's used in reference to homosexuality, but most of the time it's used as a synonym for dumb or stupid. Neither use of the word is acceptable, but the former is more serious than the latter. And it's not your child's place to address the use of the word gay." This says a lot about that person in the back of the room. There's a lot to unpack, and I ask you, listen carefully. What did he accomplish in this sentiment? Number one, he minimized the problem. Number two, he made my child feel like his complaint about kids using slurs was not as important as my child felt it was. Number two, he made excuses for the inexcusable behavior of the kids. They didn't even have to excuse themselves. He did it for them. Number three, and this is a big one. I don't know if you're smart enough to catch this or not. He compared homosexuality to being dumb or stupid. Like it's worse than being dumb or stupid. I mean, that is some mind games. It really is. And then, just to seal the deal, he said it's my kid's job to figure that out or to defend himself. This isn't about whether he's a Christian man or you're Christian people. This is about wrongdoing. Period. I'm tired of you guys using this, and members of the audience, using this statement about Christianity. I'm a Christian, for heaven's sakes. My son is a Christian. This is not the place for this kind of behavior to take place in the culture that's been created at Grundy.
Thank you, Ron. All right, Leslie. And Leslie will be followed by Dr. Ashley Fisher.
Well, I'm not going to read everything I wrote because I think there's a few other things that should be addressed. Since September, several people have engaged in a social media smear campaign. I'm not here to vindicate myself, but to continue to reiterate that these adults are not credible. One member has been investigated for misusing emails and social media and found lying in said investigation. Despite the aforementioned, she kept her job. She has posted on one of many Facebook pages slander for those who have spoke here, insinuating allegations from 2 decades ago must have some connection with the current speaker. The mission is to introduce sex exploration curriculum to 3rd graders, and this has been admitted publicly under the cloak of fixing bullying and safety and reducing stress. There's been one member who said there was an incited mob. I was there on September 5th, and there was not an incited mob. This is an exaggeration of epic proportions. And I should just stop right now and say, on behalf of Morton, I've been here my entire life. My children and myself have spent 33 plus years in Morton schools. If Black people were offended in 1923, if anyone related to me ever, or anyone related to this town were offended, I'm apologizing apologizing on behalf of something that happened 100 years ago. I spoke at this last school board meeting because I had firsthand experiences with those in this room who repeatedly harassed Christians. I experienced hypocrisy of a doctor who claims to care about vulnerable children and preaches that she listens to victims while literally silencing victims. I have firsthand experience of those people slandering me publicly while knowing nothing about the horrible treatment my daughter received from that doctor. They proved my point and doubled down on slander. I'm not sure how anyone could deduce from my speech that I said black children were liars. But there it is, slander galore. If you're a Morton parent who believes your child has been received unfair treatment, these people are probably not your best representatives. Most everyone in Morton agrees that the same rights should exist for every student. It has been said that a child was segregated. While I don't know all of the details, you can rest assured this wasn't the first kid and it won't be the last. I know two grown, successful men that spend most of their time in the hall and principal's office, and they know exactly what they did to land themselves there. Imagine you were a student who was repeatedly receiving unwanted advances from another student, ultimately getting quite fed up and replying with an unsavory word. Imagine then that the mother of the student who had been making the unwanted advances threatened you. Maybe the mom knew the whole story, or maybe she didn't. Let's give her the benefit of the doubt and say she didn't. You know the saying, there are three sides to every story. Let's go back to the First Amendment, the Establishment Clause. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or of the right of the people peaceably to assemble, and to petition the government for redress of grievances. Notice it does not say freedom from religion. Nowhere in the Constitution will you find separation of church and state. Our forefathers came here to escape tyranny. This group likes to cite Southern Poverty Law Center, a group which has lost millions in defamation settlements. Southern Poverty Law would label our forefathers as extremists. They were anti-government. Our Constitution is the longest in existence. You do not get to rewrite the Constitution, you do not get to rewrite the Bible, and you do not get to rewrite the English vocabulary. Again, does Morton have problems? Sure, we are broken people in a fallen world.
30 seconds.
Labeling Christians as fake because they are imperfect is ridiculous. Not one Christian will say they are perfect. Only one perfect person ever lived, and that was Jesus. And we know how awful he was treated.
All right, we have Dr. Ashley Fisher, and then followed by Amy Parr, and then that will be our last speaker.
Hello, so I wanted to start off actually by thanking some of the speakers from the last meeting who I think rather unintentionally supported many of the messages I've actually been here promoting for weeks. For instance, Nathan Fay, who has spoken at many of these meetings, encouraged everyone at home to read between the lines and use their common sense. I'm sure you all noticed that the board started last meeting by saying they would no longer discuss any of the accusations of harassment and bigotry because now there's lawsuits and legal action involved. Like Nathan said, I hope you all read between the lines on that one because innocent people don't refuse to talk about things because it might get them in more trouble. So I also want to thank Gabe Brakey for not only sharing his personal experience with how 709 treated his son, but for also saying that when an accusation is brought forward, it needs to be investigated. I agree completely. That's what we've been up here saying for the past 3 months. And while I'm genuinely delighted, I'm delighted Gabe's foster son had a great experience at Grundy, just like I'm delighted my own son has had an incredible experience in the Morton school districts. His teachers and administration have been nothing but wonderful and supportive. But I want every kid to have that same experience. I assume Gabe wants every kid to have that same experience. I assume all of you want every kid to have that same experience. So when kids tell us that's not happening, why don't you want to make sure that they all get that same experience? What I'm genuinely asking the board, and many of you at home, is why you don't agree with an external investigation into these accusations. What possible negative outcomes do you see? I'm genuinely asking. Because either you're right, and there's no civil rights violations, there's no bigotry, there's no racism, And I'm going to be thrilled. I genuinely will. I will be so glad that the students of 709 have a nurturing environment to learn in and that we don't have to change anything. But what if that's not the case? And we find out there are actual issues and we have an expert give us recommendations how to fix those? We are making a better school environment for our kids. So what's the downside? Either we find out everything's fine and we don't need to do anything, or we have a safer school environment for all the kids. The only risk I can really see us running here is that some people might get in trouble. So once again, reading between the lines, why are we pushing so hard to not have an investigation? What are we hiding when there's no downside to investigating it and getting the truth? I hope I'm wrong. I really do. I hope you guys prove me wrong. I will come up here and I will eat my humble pie if that investigation shows no problems, and I will say that I had it wrong. But we won't know until we actually investigate it. In case it hasn't become obvious from my speeches over the last couple months, one of my biggest frustrations with this board has not only been what I see as not very effective, but also a complete lack of transparency. We're now going 4 months where this board, in my mind, has really only accomplished 3 things. Still ignoring some really worrisome accusations of bullying and bigotry from students, attending a conference and then talking for 30 minutes about what lectures you went to instead of actually addressing all the things we're coming up here asking you to address. And third, throwing away $1.6 million of taxpayer money. Hold up, did she just say that? $1.6 million? Yeah, I did. So regardless of where you at home may stand on the whole minority children's rights topic, you gotta be a little upset that the board threw away $1.6 million of your taxpayer money, and you probably have no idea because they've done a really good job of trying to bury that story. So I am still meeting with a couple sources, and I'm going to make a video all about this, explaining what happened. So you can go to my Facebook page if you want to watch that video, or you can email the board and ask them, and maybe they'll reply to your emails. And if you're wondering why you never saw the news stories on that, you're gonna have to ask some people like, I don't know, Emily and Scott Walker, who keep Waller, who keep deleting any post that anyone puts on the Morton Heights Problem and Solutions page. And if you want to actually see these stories and see the things happening in the Morton district, might I recommend the Morton Town Forum group where that news will not be censored. So until next time, I do genuinely hope that everyone here has a terrific holiday season. I'm gonna continue to pray that God touches the board's hearts to finally do the right thing. And yeah, I pray, because guess what? I'm a Christian too, which is how I know I can quote Jesus. Let the little children come to me. Do not hinder them, for the kingdom of heaven belongs to such as these, even the kids that are black and gay. Happy holidays.
Okay, Amy Parr, and that will be our last speaker.
I'm speaking for Amy. The Constitution, when one's religious freedoms overstep the rights of others, that is when it becomes a violation of law. A speaker at the last meeting, an affluent, white Christian man that is respected in the Morton culture, stood up and spoke for his black adopted or fostered child, indicating that it must be a lie about Michael Saunders, diminishing the substantiated abuse to a black child with a non-affluent, non-Christian parent. He stood up to dissuade others from believing what happened to the black student. That is her child. From a family that doesn't have influence or wealth, or one that is maybe dying of cancer and is weak, abuse happened. You know it, because we gave it to you. Dr. Sander knows it as well. We gave you the proof. You see it. You have to get rid of him. He's going to bring you all down, and so is the doctor on the school board. Can't think of her name. There is Crawl. There's no misunderstanding of discipline. It was not an isolated situation. It happened for over a year. Dr. Smock and Dr. Sander, by saying nothing, you are allowing the community to believe that it didn't happen.
For people that have children of color, affluent people, their children may not have suffered the same way that my children did. We won't waste any more time on the unteachable bigots, but ignorance abounds and spreads like the cancer it is. Morton 709 cannot continue ignoring hate crimes. Bigots have their feelings hurt because they are called bigots. Imagine how they would feel if they were a child, my child, with no power, called the N-word every single day. Every single day. Or children that are called the F word ending in T every single day of their lives. Critical thinking tells us indoctrinating children into the LGBTQ+ community is a myth. It is a myth. Emails revealed by FOIAs prove to us that indoctrination into a perverse version of Christianity is happening. I was subjected to a Christian prayer tonight, and I am not a Christian. My rights matter. My kids' rights matter. Your religious freedoms, again, become illegal when it impedes the rights of others. This is a public school. Dr. Smock, school board, get rid of law-breaking leadership. It has nothing to do with what a person believes. When it affects the rights of students, they need to go. It is the law. Demand their resignation. Let them retire, whatever. Get them gone. They are just about to pull you all of you, into an arduous legal battle. The investigations have just started. Justice is coming. For marginalized children, stand with the children. Don't stand, you cannot be proud of the strange people that stand up here representing Christianity. Stand with the kids. Stand as a Christian. As a Christian.
30 seconds.
I am saying this, not Amy. This is my table flipping moment. Stand with the children. Be outraged. Be outraged, Mr. Breaker, for the fact that that man stood up here and called her child a liar. You stand for him. That is your job, looking over at me as if I did something wrong. God, it's embarrassing. Stand with them. That's why you're here.
That concludes our audience presentation, so we'll move on to our reports, starting with administrative reports.
All right. Just a couple things before we have I think it will be a very interesting presentation tonight. First off, I just want to say, if you haven't already seen the business office across the hall, now our business office team has moved in, or in the process of moving into their offices. And I just wanted to, on behalf of our business office team, thank the Board of Education for approving that renovation project next door. I think it'll be a much more livable space for them, and they're very appreciative of it. So on behalf of them, thank you. The MHS renovation bids, we have decided to move those bids back. They were originally going to be due tomorrow, but some of the general contractors involved in the bidding process have requested to push the dates back. So we've agreed to do that. So Friday will be the bid opening. We'll still have that in time for our meeting to approve them on next Tuesday. So just a reminder, special board meeting next Tuesday. Probably just have one agenda item, one action item, and that is to approve the winning bid for that renovation project. We may have a consent agenda item on there. I'm not quite sure about that yet, but it should be a very short agenda, and we will not be video recording that meeting next week. But we will have a regular meeting. We'll have some of the same processes in our agenda, but it'll be definitely a shorter meeting. And again, mainly to accomplish the bid approval, so we can get things rolling. Next up, we have a technology in the classroom report. Thank you for your patience, folks. This report was sparked by a board member's question. What are we doing in our district with artificial intelligence? What is the good, the bad, the ugly, those issues with it? And so with us tonight, we've got Mr. Sturm, Ms. Edelman, and Ms. Ripka to do that presentation.
Let's see, we need to have a technology person here to.
Hope you can find one or two.
Like, okay. I'm so used to doing it downstairs. Technology's hard.
Hope we can find a list or something.
Do you want to mention the cupcakes while we're waiting?
Sure.
And while we're waiting, feel free to enjoy a cupcake. They're really in honor of Ms. Ripka. Warren.
I thought Valerie could bake them herself. They were so beautiful. I was like, surely.
We're not gonna say one way or the other.
I'm not good at cupcakes.
Let's try a different route. Remote controls, Troy. I got one in my pocket. You want that one?
No, here's a malfunction, MCUSD 7.9.
Oh. I'm so used to downstairs.
Kind of like it.
There we go.
There you go.
I should have introduced myself and say my best 3 miles is 34 minutes. Some of you are getting it. Okay, let's. Okay. So I'm starting off. My name's Don Sturr, Technology Integration Specialist for the district, and we did get approached to present about AI. I think we're at 2. Did somebody start the 2-hour timer?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. So what, I guess my question is, how many of you have used AI before? Okay, I mean, you all have. In many cases, you wouldn't even know that you've used it, but how many of you have used ChatGPT before? So what we thought would be good is to actually show you, I think, to see it, you start to kind of wrap your head around, okay, this is what AI does. So I'm gonna actually show you ChatGPT. It is what came out, it just celebrated its 1-year birthday, I guess we'll call it. And I have a paid version of it, but I'm gonna show you what is the free version. And then what we also, what part of this presentation is going to be is what we're trying to do to help teachers understand this technology. And so I think the way to do this is we ask teachers to give us a prompt that they would expect students to be able to answer. And we're gonna put that into ChatGPT. And so I'll show you, we don't necessarily have to read all of this, but just so you see here. This probably be easier for me to read it from here. Small family was traveling in a van and had a minor accident. The children in the back seats were wearing lap belts, but still sustained numerous bruises about the abdomen and had some internal organ injuries. Why is this area more vulnerable to damage than others? You should present a cogent argument based on your critical analysis of the question posed using appropriate psychological terminology. It's not enough to answer a question by merely listing facts. So I have this queued up in here and I hit enter. And this is what it produces. Now, we could spend oodles of time, and we did with the teacher who gave this prompt, and her comment was, oh, yeah, that's actually not too bad. This is what ChatGPT, this is what AI is, this is what's possible with AI. To take something like a prompt, now in this case, it's a teacher's prompt, but you as private citizens could use this as well to generate a response to some prompt that you have. The question comes out, is that accurate? The best way of saying that is, we don't know. It is prone to make mistakes. I could do this without being connected to the internet. ChatGPT, the free version, does not it is not pulling from like Google. The paid version now is starting to incorporate this. This is all from stuff that it was fed. Billions and billions of pages of stuff that then it is able to take, like some people will say, well, AI is, all it's doing is guessing the next most probable word. And while that's true, there's an element of this knows the context. It knows the context of what you're asking, and so it is putting together this train of words that actually tends to produce something that is, like I said, I'm not gonna say 100% accurate. Courtney and I, in our work with this, if we were to go in and say, put some citations here, that's when it kind of starts to fall apart. Because it will say, blah, 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 Smith, page 4, blah, 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 Miller, page 5, Jones, page 7. Anybody see a pattern there? All very common names. We found that it kind of started to fall apart there. And so this was a prompt that I thought was interesting from the same teacher. We put this in, and you can continue to, like, you can have a conversation with it. I can say, further develop number 3. And it will give me more information about number 3. Okay, so it is something that can continue. That's, I think, the power of it, is to continually look at the prompt to try to come up with the best written response that you're looking for. I'm gonna put this prompt in, and we like this one because of let's go back here. Pervik and Nisha spent a summer day at a popular amusement park with friends. They rode roller coasters, ate cotton candy, played carnival games. Explain how each of the following might have played a role in their day. The amygdala, the approach conflict. So some psychology terms. We put that in, hit enter. And again, it's giving you that information. Again, we wanted to start with this because I think sometimes AI is this very nebulous kind of term, but when we talk AI, this is what we're looking at. We're just doing prompts. I could say to it, write me a program that will turn my computer on at 9 a.m., do this, 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 and this, and it will literally write the program. And then it will tell me, if you don't know how to run the program, here's how to run the program. Oh, you're using a MacBook? Here's how to run it on a MacBook. I mean, I've spent the last year just messing around with this thing. And so Deidre is going to, do you want me to?
No.
Okay. You don't want me talking.
I didn't say that. So, like Don said, AI is like you said, some big nebulous thing out there that we've all used in some sense, but maybe we haven't always recognized. Something to think about is AI has some wonderful possibilities in the classroom, but AI has some tempting things in the classroom too, and that students could be passing off AI as their own work, which it is not. And I'll have some examples of that in a second. I am very proud of this district that we were talking about this before a lot of other districts were talking about this. We were talking about this before IPA put out their policy and before press put out their policy about AI. So I'm really encouraged that this district has said this is coming and we need to address it. So we do have a policy, it's in our handbook, and it's kind of a marriage of, it's kind of a marriage of the IPA policy and the press policy and what we think is legit for our, you have a link, you can look at it. So we have the policy, but then we have what's real life in our classrooms look like right now. And so Courtney and Don came up with this kind of three-pronged approach to, number one, dissuade kids from trying to turn in AI as their own, to educate our teachers about how we can help kids make the right decision with AI. And then ultimately, at the end of the day, if they get desperate, if they turn something in, here are the pieces of evidence we can use to say, was this AI or was this your original work? So it's a three-pronged approach. The procedural changes are something that the teachers will be doing in their classroom. They are assigning students their own Google Doc for the project. And they are pushing it out through Schoology. Turnitin is a paid program that we've been using for years at the high school. And it was originally an editing program, plagiarism checker, and now it's got an AI component to it as well. So I know the junior high jumped on board this year and they're also using Turnitin. And then that third piece of the circle, I think, is probably the most important one. And that's the conversations. If we suspect that a student has turned in some work that was developed through AI as their original work, it's our responsibilities as the adults and as the classroom teachers to have those conversations with kids. To one, see if what they turned in was legitimately theirs, which if you use the turn in, the procedural changes, you can check version history, you should be able to note that. But it's also learning from that situation. We rarely have kids who violate the academic dishonesty policy twice. We rarely have that. We have had that, but rarely. But it is those conversations about what was going through your head. Why was this difficult? How can I help you with this? How can we prevent this from ever happening again? This was a hard mistake you made, but Morton High School is a safe place to make that mistake because we're gonna have these conversations. I want you to show me that you mastered the standard in your own words, not in AI's words. So in general, when something like this happens in a classroom, it is that conversation. If it's the first time, it's either a 0 or it is, I want you to do this time and again. I want you to prove to me that you've mastered the standard, and then we move on from there. What'd I do? Okay, so that procedural changes there. That's kind of go along with the two videos that are linked there, or the two slides I think that are linked there. Don made AI for Teachers, which is an overview of the philosophy of AI in the classroom, but then also here's how you make those procedural changes, make sure they're as painless as possible for teachers to implement. And then AI for Students is, again, AI philosophy in the classroom for students. Students on your end, here's your part for what you should be doing in the classroom concerning your written work. We pushed this out early in August to all of our students, and those conversations started in August of this year with our students as well. Just some data here. We've had 14 referrals for academic dishonesty. At the high school, AI was involved in 5 of them. So not real high numbers in either one of them. And when we had conversations with kids using AI, because the teachers were using these procedural changes, because they were using Turnitin, because they were having those conversations, they really weren't difficult conversations for us to have as administrators. They were difficult as teachers, obviously. They take this work personally. They don't want their kids to mess up this way, or make these decisions too. But it was really, because of what we had put in from the beginning, they were much easier conversations to have as well too. The last thing I'm gonna put out here is, this is something that Don and I have worked on, mainly Don. I worked more on the parent resources for ChatGPT, and he worked on the teacher resources, which are down there. It's a wakelet, so it's a compilation of a bunch of different resources and articles. The parent one is a lot of, hey, here's what AI is, here's what it's not, and here's how to talk to your kids about it. And then the teacher resources are really more like, here's how you can use this in the classroom. Here's how you can use it to create. Here's how you can connect with your kids. Here's how we can use AI for good, to save time, to be more efficient, but also try to get the best out of our kids as well too. So I'm gonna turn it over to Courtney, and she's gonna show you one of those resources.
Yeah, and just real quickly, if you notice that title of this is Making the Most of AI, we started with a PD session in the summer, and we called that Managing AI. Right, and we had, I don't know if we remember how many people, about 20, 15 to 20
I think it was
teachers come
about
in
20.
over the summer before the school year started to talk through, okay, what are the procedural changes? How am I gonna handle this in the classroom? And then, once the school year got started, we really shifted our mindset for our PD series that we've been running this fall, making the most of AI. So how can teachers use it? Dr. Schmack talked about instructional efficiency, right, a lot this school year, and that means a lot of different things in different contexts. But we think with AI, it really is exploring how can I use this as a resource that reduces my workload with some of the things that I need to do in the classroom, and then reallocate my energy to the things that only I can do in the classroom, providing the feedback that I can provide to my students and making sure they understand the next steps for them. And so when Don gets it going here, maybe we'll get Magic School AI pulled up there. And it's been a platform that we've used a lot in this fall PD session. We've had 18 people, and this is district-wide, not just at the high school, 18 faculty members sign up for it. About 12 to 15 have come to every session that we've run. And we've really looked at then, how can you use AI in 4 different facets within the classroom? Lesson planning, differentiation, creating or developing classroom materials, and then assessment. This Magic School AI, you can see all of those thumbnails there. That's all the different components that they have categorized for teacher use of AI. And so lesson planning is one of them on there. Make it relevant is one of them. Unpacking standards, just it taps into a lot of what we're doing in terms of initiatives and professional development within our district. And so I won't take the time to show too many, but I want to go to the output history there, Don, and we can show maybe that lesson plan. Go to the second one there.
Yeah, okay.
As a part of our classroom-driven, or our standards-driven classroom initiative, we want everything to start with standards. So as a teacher, I can plug in my grade level, I can put my standard there, I can put what content I'm dealing with, and then when I say generate, just like Don did with ChatGPT, this is what's going to present itself. And so, again, clarity on objective, thinking about how we're going to assess this before we begin instructing it, thinking about all those different core components of a lesson. How am I going to use a particular hook for this? What is going to be some direct instruction component to it? How am I going to give them some practice or formative assessment with it? Differentiation, extension activities. So this is one of the things that we love about it. We are really asking teachers to think about how you know that a student has mastered a standard, and we can put in, I want you to give me questions at all 4 DOK levels or depth of knowledge levels, so that again, I'm making sure that we can say, okay, are they kind of approaching the standard? Have they met the standard? Have they mastered the standard? Are they beyond it? So Magic School AI has been a really good resource to get teachers talking about their own use of AI, and we firmly believe that the more comfortable they are with it, then they're going to be able to bring that into the classroom, model ethical use of it, recognize it when they're getting work that maybe is used, that this has been has been created through this, because the more you work with certain platforms, particularly ChatGPT, you can start to recognize, oh, I think that has a structure of a AI produced piece, or I mean, you can recognize those things. And so familiarity from the teacher's standpoint and their comfort level with it is really, I think, integral to then using it to guide students within the classroom.
Well, and I think, do we want to talk about the science one?
Oh, sure, yeah.
I pulled this up. It was interesting. Yesterday was the last AI session, and a teacher, a 6th grade science teacher, said, "Hey, this is off topic, but I have a question about the ISA assessment. What's on it?" And it was funny. 2 of the high school teachers were like, "We don't know." And so we did some searching, and it's like, no, you cannot find practice tests. You cannot find. So my comment was, well, I mean, I think what ISB would say is, if you teach the next generation science standards, everything will be fine. Well, a teacher wants to know, they don't want their kids to go into a testing, not teaching to the test, they don't want their kids going into a testing situation, not experiencing the kinds of questions. So this teacher was really bothered. Well, it was like, I remember Courtney and I, when we looked at this, 3-dimensional science assessments. I'm not a science teacher. I was like, what does that mean? Well, it's the 3 dimensions of the next generation science. And so you can go in Magic School AI and say, well, at 9th grade level, here's the standard that I want. It will give me questions based on each of those dimensions. Now, I don't know. And if there was any teacher that said, oh, I know exactly what the ISA assessment looks like, they actually shouldn't know that, because we're told you're not supposed to look at it. It's not, you're really not supposed to be in the room and walking around and watching it. And so this is something that teacher said, oh, okay, I could put something like this in for 6th grade, and at least it would give me something that is based on the next generation science standards. So I think the other thing I'd mention about Magic School AI and any kind of AI, it really is ChatGPT. It's just an easier way of getting, like, it's helping you with the prompt. Whereas ChatGPT, it's a bunch of blank white. And in this case, it's saying, what's your standard? It's really using ChatGPT. It's utilizing that AI tool.
We call that prompt engineering.
Yeah.
And there's like a method to the madness of putting it in context and using as much detail and expanding on it, but it's super interesting because what you put into it, the better it gets, the better product you're gonna get out of it. And it all starts with the prompt engineering.
Yeah. We want to end with, so we focused on the teachers and we focused on getting them comfortable with it. And we've had some conversations with teachers, some of them that are like, I don't know, is it really ethical for me to put this in and then get something back and give it to my students? So Courtney and I have spent a lot of time talking about name it, tell them that you're using AI. We had a teacher, one of our coaches actually, put in a 4th grade narrative, write me a 4th grade narrative that is done according to standards and is a good example. Then said, write me another narrative that does not meet the standard. Our coach already knows how to write a narrative. She was getting a narrative to use from ChatGPT to be able to give to students to then start saying, okay, let's talk about this. What's good about this? What do we need to work on with this? There are some teachers that are like, yeah, but I don't know. I probably should have written that myself. We're trying to, the instructional efficiency that I believe Dr. Smock talked about, like that's what we're trying to help teachers with. But at some point, we're going to have to talk about student use, I think. I mean, that's just me talking. Courtney and Dee both agree. I mean, we're going to have that conversation. What I did is took OpenAI's privacy policy and put it here. there are some schools that are using OpenAI and they're using it at all grade levels. I mean, just from their privacy policy, really shouldn't do that. And so it is under the age of 13, you really shouldn't be using it. If you are between 13 and 18, now you're talking about that parent or guardian permission. And so I think that's the next lane that we have to look at is how do we open this up? When do we open this up for students? I don't have the answer, but I think I personally think we're doing students a disservice if we don't help them learn how to use this before they go off and use it wrong or unethically, I guess would be the right thing. So.
Any questions?
Yeah, questions? And Dr. Smock and I have become, he keeps sending me emails. Have you seen this? Have you seen this?
We keep seeing things in the newspaper, we keep seeing articles, probably you've seen them come in your emails about different issues with it, and yeah, it's fascinating. I'm fascinated about how fast it generates things. When you think about how slow sometimes just a simple search in a search engine takes, but how quickly that is happening. Can you explain the speed of it? How does it go out and seek credible sources, or does it? It doesn't.
It
So
doesn't.
it's just seeking whatever.
That's what it knows.
And actually putting together in a because it's looking like it's doing this, but it can't be because there's context to things that will follow that it's not covered yet, and you know what I mean? So is it instantaneous and it just looks like it's creating text as it goes?
It's pretty instantaneous. I would recommend, and I can share it with you, I would highly recommend watching the 60 Minutes
I saw that
segment of the person who basically designed AI and then resigned to that he was Google's head. He does the best job of explaining it. I mean, some peon like me to try to explain how it's working behind, there are very few people that understand truly how this thing is working. I mean, in some ways they're trying to replicate a neural network just like your brain. That once it gets the prompt engineering, now a user plugs in, hey, but what about this? It's like making another neural pathway to say, oh, that user wanted to connect these things together, maybe there's a connection there. We found some, I'm trying to think, I wish we would have come up with some inaccuracies. We did find some where we'd read it and we're like, yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, the citations.
Well, the citations, but also if you ask for a bibliography then for that same paper, because of course, like in the English discipline, that's what separates, like you have to cite where you're getting this, right? And that's something that AI won't do right now, but it fabricates this journal, which is an actual journal, this author who's an actual author, but never wrote that article in that issue of that journal. So that's where you can kind of pick apart some of those inaccuracies that I've explored the most, just as far as like English department, concerns with it.
And there's a story out there, but I don't remember what state, but there were a set of attorneys that presented a case and used AI to present the case. They ended up being disbarred. Because as the judge was listening, he was like, I've never heard of these cases. We'll come to find out it's all fabricated. And so, but then on the other, like you say that, but I think that's the key is having some background to be able to look at it and say, okay, that doesn't seem right. And that's where I think we need to make sure with students that we're getting I would say teachers understand that. But I think students are like, I'm just gonna take and plug this into a Google Doc. And it's hard for them because if you don't have the background knowledge, you don't know what you don't know. So what this thing is telling me sounds like something that makes sense. I probably didn't answer your question.
I can help.
Certainly tried.
So one of the recent articles, because I've been trying to learn a little bit about this, because AI is the future, whether we like it or not. Kids are going to get into it, so you might as well teach them to use it properly. This is my opinion, not. Anyway, So the article that I listened to or read something, they did, doctors were they did a ChatGPT about some medical problem. ChatGPT said this, and this. And what they were pulling from was wherever out in the Google space, wherever. And 25% was accurate, 75% was inaccurate. And the reason why it was 75% was inaccurate is because for what they were pulling from was some of the medicines that they said to use was a negative impact. So once you start using multiple medicines, which ChatGPT told them to use, that would effectively ruin the body in some way, shape, or form. So again, this is me just listening. I think it was a podcast or something, and it said, okay, yeah, ChatGPT is, or whatever AI, is awesome because it does this, and this really well, but when it comes to this, it's pulling from this is the answer to your question, it's pulling from, the space out, all the electrons, and it's not necessarily right. And if you go out to Google or whatever search engine, you don't know if you're getting the facts or not the facts. It's just somebody can put anything out there, and whatever AI is going to pull from whomever, and none of it's substantiated. So that's, I think, the short answer to your question is it's pulling from wherever and it's not substantiated. That's where you use the ChatGPT or the AI, whatever that you want to use, and then you have an expert, yep, or a doctor, yep, or wrong. That's where that would come into play.
Well, and as a personal example, I had a close family member who was in the hospital in really serious condition, and I had access to their medical records because I was partially a decision maker. I'm talking stuff that I'm like, I can look this up. I copied the test results, went to ChatGPT, and I said, tell me what this means. And then I took it. I wasn't a doctor, so I'm not going and treating. Then I would share it with my sister-in-law and my niece, who's a doctor, and be like, is this? And they're like, actually, that was pretty good. So I used it just as a help because if not, I'm Googling every word. What does this word mean? What does this word mean? And then trying to put it all together. And it did a decent job, but I also wasn't I wasn't the attending physician. I would hope an attending physician would not just go, here's all of the symptoms. Tell me what medicine that you need to understand what it is, where its value is. And I don't know it's in the value of right now, but I always do tell teachers, this is what you just saw today is as bad as it's ever going to get. And sometimes people look like, well, it's like, it's only going to get better. So we can talk about it now. Who knows 6 months from now? It's crazy what it's come to in a year even.
I can see, there's a lot of uses for it, obviously, that aren't medically critical or life or death. I had a superintendent in Middle Illini ask me if I ever used ChatGPT, and I said, no, I hadn't used it. He said, I use it all the time. Write me a letter to parents that has these certain things in it, and then it'll spit it out. I'll look it over, maybe change a few things, on we go. And I'm wondering that for teachers in lesson plans, write me a lesson that, a lab, let's say a science lab that shows the principle of density, Is there a hurdle for adults to start using this and for those kind of benefits without them feeling like they're cheating in some way or
That's the conversations that we keep having.
We keep having.
That's the hurdle. Yeah.
Yep. I have one, I use Voxer, and a friend of mine who teaches in the district said, I just don't know. Because I was talking about emails. Let's say you get an email from a parent that is maybe a little bit like the parent's concern. I would take the email, I put it in ChatGPT and say, can you help me craft something that is not inappropriate? And then if I got it, now I would say as a person who wrote all kinds of history papers, I can't ever see myself just taking that and cutting and pasting and then sending it to the parent. But I would look at what it gave me and be like, oh, I like the way it crafted this one. I really wanted to say this, but that probably wouldn't be wise, and so this is what it spit out. I think that's what we're trying to do, is to get people to really think about how does it, keep going back to that efficiency. How do we be more efficient at what we're doing? The US Naval Academy requires certain criteria, and if you've not looked at that and you write a letter of recommendation for the US Naval Academy, it's not gonna get looked at. ChatGPT knows what the requirements are. And no, I'm not saying I would double check that, but it will actually create something. You can say, this student is this, and this, they've done this. The prompts can be longer than what actually gets spit out. And then one would ask, okay, well, is that my work? I mean, it's not technically your work. But if you go in and then what's the difference, Courtney and I have talked about this. If I write a book and I send it to an editor and the editor comes back with all these lines crossed out and this, and I make every single recommendation change, is that my work or is that the editor's work? And there's no right or wrong answer. I think that's what we need to put into people's head. If it feels wrong, then maybe take a look at it again and do some rewording. And make it more.
Just as a comment, this is really interesting because, it's similar to performance enhancing chemicals, right? It isn't fair if you compete against another person using that, but it's interesting to think, okay, take it out of that biological competition, and really what we're doing is putting that into more of a mental competition, right? And so it is interesting, like, where are those standards of this is, still my exercise, my event, my piece. And then if you're not in an Olympic competition or IHSA competition, people use performance enhancing chemicals all the time, and they're reaping some benefits and some consequences. So I see the ethical part of that very much, and then that just leads me to my main question, which is it more difficult to detect this than in more creative capacities, student-wise, job applicant-wise, those kinds of things? And do you hear anything in the English world about that?
Well,
You can't put a bibliography on a poem.
Well, it really is. I think it makes us question what makes us human and what are those human elements that this will never replicate, right? So, that's where I think it challenges us to be, what is it that is unique about your human experience that you can bring to this? And that's what we have to start tapping into, and we have to get students, I think, to see the value of that. Like, that is what your value is. Yes, you're up against all this stuff, but that is where your value lies. So I don't know if I answered that, but I think we've had a conversation. We just did a podcast about reflection and, talking about how AI can be a component of that, and how what is going to separate us really is our humanity in the midst of all of this. And so we need to have more conversations with students about that and get them to, again, see the value of that. So
it seems like this has the potential to really minimize excellent writing skills, because you'll see something and you'll think, well, I'm expecting to see something excellent because it can be created by someone else or by AI. And so will that minimize that component to a person's application or different things? And so that's my one thought. And the other thought I had was, why can't I write a prompt for AI to write me an essay that can't be detected as AI?
You can, but it still registers as AI.
So there's no way for it to get to write something with just enough errors in it, or just...
well, but you can absolutely say, rewrite this in the voice of a 10th grader, rewrite this in the voice of a 4th grader, rewrite this and provide me some sentence level errors that would make it, the expectation for, you can do all of that. And they're also, of course, finding ways of then making similarity checks and AI detectors less effective. So putting in white text in between your lines in small font, there's all sorts of things now that are, how can I subvert the AI detectors? So now it's keeping up with
So
that
that's
too.
our three-pronged approach
Right.
though,
Yeah.
are the procedural safeguards, the Turnitin, and the conversations. That really will help us weed out what is truly 100% or 95% AI and what is not.
You know, this is something I think is going to make different skills more valuable in our world. So, for example, penmanship, I would argue, is essentially not, forget the word, obsolete. But our students who can come up with, who can engineer a good prompt are going to need to be able to hone that skill so that they can be valuable in future jobs. And so that is really, that's a new skill that our students are gonna need.
And we're just talking about it really, at this point, from an education perspective. I mean, businesses, like, write me a bit, I have an idea for a business, write me a business plan that includes this. I mean, and it produces business plan. I mean, it produces whatever you want it to produce. And yeah, I mean, it is the world that we live in. It is absolutely going to be part of our world moving forward.
Do you see a time when sources will be certified? In other words, AI won't go out just to anything, but it'll meet sources and they'll be rejected and there'll be some process for legitimacy?
Yeah. I'm not a futurist. I mean, I am, but an amateur one. I don't know. If I were a betting person, I would say yes. Because what you can already do in the paid version of ChatGPT is build your own GPT. So I could say, my GPT is based on educational research. When a prompt gets put in here, you are only to reference these kinds of resources. This type, and so I think, yeah, I mean, I would guess that's going to happen, but I don't know.
You're a math guy. What do you think people were talking about when the calculator was?
I was thinking the same.
Yeah, I was gonna say that.
I was thinking the same thing.
We've had that conversation.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and what happened to math skills after that, yeah.
Well, I went to a session in September, and that was my introduction of what they were doing in a school and what they were teaching teachers and in service, because that's the way the world is going. And there's, I won't say billions of dollars, but there's trillions of dollars being invested in this. And I think we would be doing our students a disservice if we don't stay on top of it. I was talking to someone about the plagiarism, and there goes a nice computer. That's how you get rid of it. At any rate, they talked in terms of the detectors of plagiarism, and then there's some people that how do you get around the plagiarism? So now the detectors get better, and the world is changing at a pretty rapid pace on this whole topic, and I think we owe it to our students to know what is our plan. And to your point, in the session I was in, it was how it was making teachers more efficient from the standpoint of their teaching plans and what have you, and there's good, there's bad.
I think
where's the best way to learn and stay on top of it? And I guess I would challenge, I don't think we should rely on trying to figure it all out ourselves. If there's other districts and other sources for you to go to.
Just ask AI, they'll tell you.
Yeah, I know.
I'm pretty sure it's somewhere warm with the beach, that's where we.
There you go.
They have the answers.
But
one of the things I think about is the career implications. What jobs will this make disappear? And it could be technical jobs even, designing this, designing that, not just writing. It could be legal things, even architecture. there's just so many implications to career fields. And I think what you said, Diane, is at some point, it's gonna be Courtney said that the human touch aspect or the humanity part of it won't go away. But what are those other jobs where you could see them be replaced with AI? And how do we help our students be directed in the right location, the right spots, so that they don't end up in a career that hits a dead end, so.
I would like to see this as a follow-up or some way to continue to learn what we are learning. I mean, I was shocked that, quite frankly, that we're as far along because we haven't really had any of those conversations.
Right, they have.
I mean, like, I remember going to Courtney early on, and I was like, we have to get ahead of this thing and we were it was like, at the start of the year, if we don't talk about this to teachers until October, we've just wasted a couple of months. But if we can get it to them so a teacher in their rule and regulation discussion is talking about, hey, here's this process that we're going through, that's gonna, and I think, I enjoy doing this. Like, every article that you send me, I go through and read it. I have so many podcasts. It's just, but there's almost too many. There's too much right now. It's like you have to focus, which I have a hard time with sometimes.
I'm concerned about video. I don't know if you've seen some of the things.
Deep fakes.
Yeah, some of that. So, I don't know, I just think we're in for a rocky ride with this.
For sure.
Yeah.
So how do we stay on top of it?
We have periodic updates from this crew right here of, what's latest, and I think, they're very highly interested in the topic and already way ahead of the curve, way ahead of other districts. So thank you so much for your interest in the topic. It's critical, it's vital, and really appreciate you being here tonight and doing the presentation. We'll ask for an update in the future as you see fit. Don't be afraid to say, hey, I think it's time for an update, but we'll definitely keep in touch with you and make sure we're aware of what the latest is in AI.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Grab a cupcake before you go.
Please.
Or two.
If I ate a cupcake right now on an empty stomach, I would be wired for the rest of the night. Thank you.
That's good stuff.
That'd be fun.
Okay, the last thing on my report, just now getting to my report, is the school calendar for 24-25. Dr. Sander has had a couple meetings with the calendar committee, including one even yet this afternoon, and I think they have it narrowed down to one calendar from the teachers are recommending. And just a reminder, the whole calendar process is a form of negotiating with teachers. They get input by law. It's part of their, their work. And the negotiation process doesn't mean they select the calendar. It's a process where we work with them, with administrators, come up with a recommendation, but ultimately the Board of Education approves the calendar. So with that, I'm gonna turn it over to Dr. Sander. Tell us a little bit about what.
That's exactly what ChatGPT just said. Right here, just perfect. No, thank you for that.
Obsolete.
So I provided 4 drafts or 4 different options that the committee looked at. And so the option that, the disclaimer, option D, that's one that the committee's gonna recommend. But option A was all of the corresponding dates from this year's calendar applied for next year, okay? As we look ahead to next year, so Veterans Day did not fall during a Monday through Friday this year. And then next year, in November, we have Election Day. And so those are 2 days that are gonna be not non-attendance days in the next calendar that we have to account for that didn't take place this year. And so option A was just the corresponding dates. Option B, we moved the calendar up, if that's the way we wanna look at it, to a Monday, Tuesday start date. Now, what I mean by that, Monday is first day for staff, Tuesday is the first day for students in August, but everything else corresponded. Then option C, we kept the Monday, Tuesday start date, but we realized that Easter next year falls on April 20th. And waiting to hold spring break until that late in the school year can be somewhat problematic. You have a long run between, March and into April, and you start to lose some momentum as you get closer to Easter break. And so, anyway, so option C, during our first meeting, that was one of the items that the committee had a consensus on. Option C was moving the spring to a spring break, which is the last week in March, and then have a Friday, Monday around Easter off. And so that came from the first meeting of the calendar committee as a consensus. And then option D, so this year we tried the split parent-teacher conference. And so I surveyed the parents in the district, and I also surveyed our staff. And then we also looked at attendance data on both corresponding dates. And what came of it was it's about right down the middle. There was nothing compelling one way or the other. And so when I shared that with the committee today, it was like, oh, great. We have a lot of good data, but nothing that points us to one direction or the other. So option D was bringing both of the parent-teacher conferences back to a single set of dates, a Thursday, Friday in October. There was some compromise. The high school parent-teacher conferences are important to have as close as you can get to the end of the first quarter, okay? That is important. It's really not a good idea to move parent-teacher conferences back for the high school staff into November because after conferences, there's just such a little window of time to try to make any changes, especially with a one-semester class. If you have a child that may be struggling, it may be beyond that point of no return, okay? And so the committee looked at that. They're bringing option D. They'd like to bring option D forward to the board for approval. And so it has a Monday, Tuesday in August, the 12th and 13th would be the start dates. And then you can see the half-day in services throughout. Those are the single lines. The red didn't copy over too well, but if you look closely, you can see we're like in November. We've got November 5th is a Tuesday, that's Election Day, and then November 11th is Veterans Day. That follows the week after. There's really not much that we can do about that. And so, but the rest of the calendar dates are pretty straightforward. So I think it's a good landing point. One of the things that the committee discussed also today was maybe making a recommendation that we have like an ad hoc committee, not necessarily the calendar committee, that looks at parent-teacher conferences, see if there's a more creative way to do parent-teacher conferences together. And then bring that back to the calendar committee. And Valerie will like this because she brought up the idea, to me at least, putting the committee back together sometime in the spring to look at setting, I hate to say this, the 25-26 calendar before we get through with this year. So then from that point forward, we would always have another calendar in advance, and then the committee would be working on the second year out. As much as we all plan our lives through this and having everything planned out 6, 8, 12, 16 months in advance, it could be advantageous for that. So
this is what the teachers did.
Yes, that's what the committee brought forward.
I like it. That was my choice, so I'm good.
Option D.
So that's for me.
What other questions do you have?
No, I'm fine with it. Your point on getting a year ahead of the game,
I like that from a possibility, if we could maybe improve attendance overall instead of people guessing and planning and although maybe parents are gonna take their kids out of school when they want anyway, but it's gotten to be quite a problem, the attendance. And so anything you can do that might help that.
Sometimes they plan based on our calendar,
That's right.
so, yeah.
Why is D 2 days shorter?
Say again?
Why is D 2 student days shorter?
So when we had the parent-teacher conference days separated, if you have half the students in your district in attendance, you can count those.
That's the difference.
So last year, we reported when we filed the calendar with the ISB, it gets approved at the Regional Office of Education. You can go above 176 days, student attendance days, right? And so our calendar last year had 178 days because we counted both sets of parent-teacher conference days. Yeah. Good question.
One tiny little comment, which has nothing to do with the calendar, but this guy on the iPad has blue for August 12th, blue, and then the paper copy doesn't. So I don't know which one.
The blue is correct.
Okay, so
The
this is an older
paper, I
version.
don't know if we're getting low on
It's just
color.
very light.
Yeah, it's light.
And it almost looks white.
Yeah.
Alright.
Go with the electronic version of it. So. And this is just a good way to do a full snapshot at one sitting.
I just didn't know if this was like revision 1 or 2 or whatever. I just want to make sure we're on the same.
Monday is an in-service day, so I color code them blue, and then at the end of the year, you'll see a series of 6 dates. One is the in-service date, and then the other 5 account for the possible emergency days that we could use in the event that we would have to cancel school for,
And those highlighted in blue very nicely.
I don't know what happened at the top end of this.
All right, that's fine. It's the OCD in me, I can't help it.
All right.
Okay, so next we'll put this on the board meeting for the first January meeting as an action item for you to approve it. If you come across something or have any questions in the meantime, if you pour into it a little deeper, don't hesitate to call us, ask us any questions, and we can discuss those things. But so we'll see that first January meeting as an action item for the board to approve. That way we can put it out to our public. That concludes the superintendent's report.
Questions for Dr. Smith? Then we'll move on to the president's report. Just want to congratulate the teams that were here tonight. It's great to see the success, and congratulations to Deidre for your award. So it's great to see excellent things happening in the district. So, and I put I should have used the chat thing to put my little report together, but I'm making a statement, just when it comes to, maybe it's a segue into our discussion items, on the audience presentations, our policies, and some of the things that go on. So my statement is as follows. There seems to be confusion regarding audience presentations. They're to serve 2 purposes. One, to comment on agenda items, and to make general comments to the board, which could be agenda items in the future. The Open Meeting Act ensures that the public has the opportunity to make comments to the board at a certain time and to witness the meeting, except when the board is in closed session. The public comment segment is not intended for the board to interact and or have discussion with the public. We've been getting feedback maybe that we seem indifferent to people, the concerns that people bring forward, and maybe we don't care. It seems like we're not addressing them. I think quite the opposite is true. We have been addressing them. We've had several policy discussions regarding the input we've received. There have been many situations presented to the board that involve students and personnel, and the board and admin team cannot comment publicly on either.
So we're kind of at an unfair advantage when we get presented with things involving employees and our students, but we cannot comment on. There have been suggestions for board policy change as well. Our policies are all enacted with approval from legal counsel and suggestions from the Illinois Association of School Boards. Just because a presenter doesn't get the change they prefer does not make the board wrong or indifferent. I think maybe an example is we're gonna do some modifications to the high school, and I'm pretty sure that there'll be people in the community that think we spent too much, didn't spend enough, and have different opinions. But at some point, the board has to make a decision and move forward, and hopefully it satisfies the majority of the people in. Unfortunately, with over 3,100 students and 500 employees, there will always be issues that arise. We cannot, that's just the fact of life. We're imperfect people, and people are gonna make mistakes, and it's our job to try to minimize it. I can assure you, though, that the board and admin team is committed to all students having a safe and impactful experience at 709. It is our responsibility and commitment to make sure all reports of injustice are taken seriously and investigated. Going forward, I want to encourage the board and admin team to continue to look forward to ways to ensure that we are providing a positive experience for all students in District 709 and continue to share the steps the district is taking to make make this a reality with the public. So that's my short take at just trying to say we are listening, we do care, and some things we just can't discuss. So that is what it is. And just because people do not get the change they prefer does not make us wrong or them right. It just makes us have a different opinion. And our policies are legal and go with the state laws and federal laws. So I don't know if anybody else wants to jump on or disown me or vote me out or whatever, so.
Well said. Thank you for stating that.
I think you make excellent points. I've always thought the audience presentations were to address the board, not necessarily the camera, and the focus being their message to the board. Sometimes of late, I see that being lost. And it's troublesome that we continue on the path. It may never go away, but we have to continue to do what you outlined, and that is what's best for students. And I believe we're doing that. And when allegations, complaints come up, I trust that our administrative team hears those things and can refute them or whatever it is. And just appreciate what you're going through as well. And it's not gonna go away. Yet another comment, about comment made that I supposedly made, and I don't know how anyone could say there isn't theatrics going on in the way they present, and I'll own that. I'm not afraid to own that. If that helps them. To me, it's minor, and I'm just troubled by the way we continue to have to listen to the process. We went probably, a half an hour tonight with audience presentations. Is that correct? Do we know the time? Is that
Probably longer than that. It's probably 40 minutes.
40 minutes.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So that's 45 minutes since they all almost used 5 minutes. So not quite 45, but close.
If we were getting a different message, I would say we just keep weathering it. But I think in light of what's fair for the audience that comes to our meetings, that we ought to do, as other school boards have done, is maybe move anything that's not an agenda item to at the end of the meeting, and I like that idea.
Segueing into our discussion item. So does anybody have anything for agenda building items?
And I think Tom brought up the
I'm
one for
sorry.
the AI discussion today, which was part of the agenda building, so thanks for that, and that's a positive. So with that, we will move on to discussion items, unless anybody wants to add on, but, so,
Agree with you.
I'm sorry, I thought it segued right in.
yeah, it's fine, you know, me, a rule follower.
So to kick this off, I think I shared with you the policies that we have in place right now, and maybe you had a chance to look them over. Also shared our current statement of audience presentations that Mr. Breaker says each time. And shared probably a few sort of talking points or topics. I've added to it on my sheet, maybe not yours. Just things that maybe you want to discuss, the time constraints. Mr. Neely just started now just talking about the location of public speaking on our agenda. So I don't want to do all the talking, I'm gonna let you talk, but what kind of, which topic would you like to kind of start to tackle a little bit?
I think 5 minutes is sufficient. I want to make sure people have their opportunity to get whatever point across that they need to get. And I think if we lower that time frame, I don't know if that's appropriate. I think 5 minutes sometimes might feel long, but I think that's fair. Sometimes I'd like it to be, lower, but I thought about that specific question quite a bit, and I think 5 minutes is fair.
On our September meeting, we had 22 speakers, I think, plus or minus.
Right.
And we said we were gonna limit to an hour, so they were given 3 minutes.
Yeah, okay, so maybe we need to adjust that. If there are more than 12 speakers, that would be 60 minutes, then we will lower it to make it a maximum.
Definitely, the overall time should be no more than 60 minutes. I would
Yes. I will concede the 5 minutes to the no more than 60 minutes.
And we have language that allows us to adjust it. It doesn't say I don't think it says the number 60 minutes.
No, I don't think so either, but that was.
But we have the flexibility to adjust it according to how many speakers we're expecting, yeah.
Right, I think 60 minutes of.
Maybe we don't need to change in that regard.
I think as over time, from what I've seen, I don't know that they need 5 minutes. I understand your point, but I think 3 minutes when you know you have 10 people that's going to talk is yet an appropriate number, and boards do that as well. So when they know the amount of time. So that's just my, I
Up for
respect
debate, I
your
get it. I think 60 minutes max, I think is perfect, and I just think 5 minutes is okay, but that's just my opinion. If you want to go 3.
I agree. I mean, I agree with that. I 5 minutes or whatever. To me, it's, although we've been told that we don't actually do anything tonight, there is actually like agenda and things that need to be done for the actual good of all the students. That's what we actually try to do. And there could be actually people interested in the things about whether it's the levy or the bond or that they want to hear, and whether it's some other event. Like, I feel like having just like the open-ended discussion at the beginning, not related to what our actual board work is that night, could maybe hinder the ability of someone else who wants to actually be involved or listen to what the actual, like, well, I don't have time for this now and now I gotta leave, right? And so for me, the whole split thing that you kind of mentioned, I don't think that's a terrible idea personally. And people don't wanna like listen to what we have to talk about or wanna tell us about what we're actually gonna vote on or discuss, have them talk to us, and then stuff that is for future agenda or concern they need to address, like you have that at the end. So if there is something going on that we're gonna discuss, people actually have the opportunity to do that and not have to sit for 45 minutes and like listen to lectures about things.
I agree with you, David. I think it is important for people to be able to comment on our agenda at the very beginning in case they have something that we need to hear.
Absolutely.
Yeah, since we're gonna be talking about it.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think we still need to have public comment for agenda-specific items at the beginning, but then all other items, I agree with that, having a split idea.
I like that for multiple reasons. You know, A, if you have kids in here that are gonna be receiving an award or something, they might not want to be subjected to all kinds of different stuff. Now, granted, we got through the awards prior to the public comment, which I appreciated. And then the other thing is when we, you know, when we're not talking about, we meaning that people are not talking about an agenda item and they wanna talk about stuff that we can't discuss because most of it is repercussions for, you know, bad choices or whatever. You know, that, I think that should be held towards the end.
I agree.
Is that the consensus that we have set up 2 public comments?
What does that look like though if we have a closed session to talk about other items? How would we handle that?
It'd be before close.
So it would be before?
That's what I would.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you gotta do it before
I think,
close.
yeah,
you can't.
We're not trying to be unduly burdensome to the people that wanna do it. And we don't
Well,
wanna-
plus sometimes people have come to us with personnel conversations, and it is allowable to offer them closed session to have those discussions and not to have them publicly if it relates to staff. And for the closed session to be located right after that second public comments that aren't agenda related. Could be a good timing opportunity for a person to want to take it into closed session, have a conversation in private with the board that involves a student situation or a staff situation. That would be an advantage, I guess that's what I would say.
Pros and cons to everything. I think we just need to outweigh the pros versus the cons and make a decision. And if we need to, we can always adjust later.
Does this need to be a policy thing, or do we have the leeway in our current?
I don't feel like we really have, our policy isn't that specific, is it? Regarding the timing or the number of.
Well, it says this is the only time set aside for all this presentation.
So that's one thing, yeah, and that's a topic I've got on my list is the kind of the prelude to all of this, is we need to look at that. I've got a point to make about that, but that's a great point. We have to change that, right? This isn't the only time. This is the time set aside for agenda-related items. And we would have our note cards where the agenda-related item has to be listed to verify, okay, you're here to talk about the levy. And so we know, have you in the first session. Other cards will be coming in and they'll be not agenda-related and they'll come after. And so we do need to communicate that clearly, at least for the first few meetings.
And then the other thing that I would suggest, if we're gonna update policy, is if you speak, then you shouldn't be allowed to proxy for somebody else, because that ends up being an addendum to what their personal speech is. So we saw that tonight, we witnessed that tonight.
And it's happened more than once. But you're right.
So that would be, if you're
Is there a way
going
to
to
clarify that?
Right, so if you're going to speak, then you can't be a proxy. That would be what I would state in the policy. It's, again, my personal opinion, because now that's given that person that's proxying twice to speak.
An individual can only speak once, and they can't speak for someone else.
But someone else could speak for someone else.
Correct.
A person who hasn't spoken on their own behalf could.
Yeah, yeah, because we don't want to stop somebody that, you know, can't speak for whatever reason. There should be a proxy for that person. That's fair.
And they need to be physically present.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes, yes.
They can't just submit something.
Yes, that's another good point. They need to be physically present, in my opinion.
And it's my understanding what we're talking about, these changes, were not unique. Other districts have considered this, and they have a like policy of what we're doing, so it's,
Yeah, this impacts not just school districts, this impacts cities and villages and all, just about every public entity around.
I think that's important to convey.
Right, I agree. That way, the people have their opportunity for their free speech.
That's right.
And they have that, but we are, as President Brinker said, trying to get back to some rules here.
Well, we're trying to protect what our job is, and we're having disruption of our meetings, and we need to
Running in and
keep
out.
the priority, the district's business, and the purpose of our meetings being open to the public and open for comment from the public are so that our meeting business can be done. And so I'm in favor of the suggestions, or the suggestion that we're talking about. It's relevant, it still allows public comment. I feel very strongly that we have a good policy that explains why we have public comments. And while as an elected official, I am proud to be part of a country where you can speak against your government and elected officials, I am not interested at all in providing an environment for name calling and yelling at the audience. And I would like to make whatever changes we need to make so that we don't see our audience, our professionals, and honestly, our guests being name called. These people are here to address the board, and they need to address the board. And I know what it's like to be called a name, but when I collected signatures and ran for this office, I knew that that was something I could be signing up for, but I don't think our guests are signing up to be called names. And so I really would like to see us enforce our policy of that is read, saying they're to conduct themselves with civility and respect. And I think we've been just extremely patient and gracious and wanted to hear people's hearts, but I can't protect the rights of those who are coming to harass and name call our guests here. And I represent a wonderful community, and I don't think that we should protect the rights of people who want to use our meetings as a platform to slander those we're sitting here representing. There are other means for that, and those are being utilized, including social media, but this is a school district board meeting. So I'd like to really try to protect that. I appreciate the extra security tonight. I appreciate very much President Breaker's emphasis on that. But to Mr. Neely's point, in our culture, people want to come and speak and be heard. And we want to hear them as it applies to our school district's business. But if we must continue to expect people to come and have very passionate speeches to us, then I think it's appropriate for us to review this policy and very carefully try to make sure we follow it like we reviewed all the other policies that we've been asked to do.
That's well stated. I would add to that, the advantage of putting it, the non-agenda items at the end of the meeting is it does allow people to hear all of our regular business and decide whether to be subjected to other public comments. We know that they've been offensive to all people. Different comments have been offensive to different people. Some people have left in the middle of public comments. And having those kind of comments that aren't relative to our agenda, people can make a decision for themselves whether, okay, am I leaving now before this, or am I staying? And they've still seen the complete board meeting as we were planning it, the business of the school district, and then decide for themselves whether they're going to be subjected to all kinds of speech that's allowed. in many cases. So I think that's an added advantage to this.
And it shows courtesy to the presenters too, that are just here for one specific item on the agenda to present. They aren't subject to everything at the beginning.
Yeah.
Excuse me, a presenter's given 5 minutes total, not one each session, correct?
That's a good point.
So how that policy will be enforced, we probably need to look at what we've been through the last few months. I mean, someone who's proxying but then has already used their 5 minutes and then uses someone else's minutes. Our policy does say you can petition for more time, but if that's not granted, I certainly think we should enforce that, and I appreciate all those efforts, but
I personally like the way the policy is relative to not specifying the amount of time and leaving that up to the practice, and the president, with the will of the board, has the ability to flex that, give more or less time. And I prefer to leave that open-ended.
Got enough to go with?
Yeah, this is a great start. I think we can write some procedures. Maybe it's an administrative procedure that falls under our policy. I don't think anything we've said today contradicts the policy to the point we need to change it. I'll look through that, of course. The other thing, just maybe a couple other things on my list that we haven't talked about. In the audience presentation, kind of the preamble to it, obviously, we have to change that there's only one time set aside. We have some explanation to do on the 2 different segments. But the other part that's on there that I didn't see in our policy is about the response of the board by the end of the next regular Board of Education meeting. So as I was reading through the policy, which, I'm not always apt to read every word of it until now, for this occasion, I don't see anywhere in our policy that that's something that we're guaranteeing.
That's been our practice. And
yeah,
it used to be on the document that we handed out. I don't have that in front of me.
I mean, sometimes there isn't necessarily a response that we can give, and sometimes a response could take longer than, so I don't know if we want to, I guess I was just bringing up the topic of, is that a guarantee that we should present when it's not part of our policy?
It should be adjusted.
Right, attempt.
So it gives us a little more flexibility.
So we will.
Because we're getting held to the standard, which is semi-fair, but saying you're gonna respond and you don't. And so we may respond if we feel necessary or whatever. That's to make it so there's
some latitude there. Yeah, we can reword that.
What does the document say that they get when they sign up? I don't have that in front of
I
me.
believe it's the same, it's on our board agenda.
I read it to you every meeting now.
Pardon me?
I read it to you.
So it's in writing on our board agenda.
Yeah, that's where I thought it was stated.
So yeah, it's actually on our board agenda. They can pick it up, and so they're seeing what Tim is reading.
So eloquently, he reads it.
Do what?
Nothing, just Josh.
Right, so the Board of Ed will take all presentations under consideration and respond at the latest by the end of the next regular board. Attempt to respond.
If a response is warranted.
If a response is warranted, that's
Mm-hmm.
better yet.
And that doesn't have to be policy, that's just our practice.
Yeah.
Right. If a response is warranted, because we already said we're not gonna respond to discipline actions, or whether it be teachers, kids, whatever. And then I think we need to add, if you can't conduct yourself with civility, then you're gonna no longer be allowed back. Something.
Why don't you just come up with those revisions and we'll just spend 3 minutes or less on the 19th discussing them.
It's a good idea.
Okay, so for the 19th? Okay.
But for
The
this,
person was on the 3 minutes or less.
I'm gonna do 2.5 minutes.
Somebody's hungry and has to go to the bathroom.
Two
Yes,
minutes.
sir.
but
If
for,
we could
for our
emphasize-
document here that's not policy, could there be a statement that if you have to leave the room, wait until the speakers are done, so they're not going in and out? That's so rude. Or is that being petty? Probably being petty.
At some point, people have to learn to behave. We don't have to tell them. I mean, maybe we will, but I'm saying,
I'd like there to be emphasis on, please limit your comments to the Board of Education, or some admonishment to remember that your comments are to be to the Board of Education, unless there's some policy that says this is a forum for community protest, which I haven't read in our policy.
I'll look into whether we can restrict it in that way. It's definitely our preference.
Yeah, so how can we express
You
that?
can always word it as preference.
So Jay, how are you going to defend it? We're gonna be tough on that.
There you go.
Okay, I think I've got my instructions. I'll write up what I think we just agreed to.
That's the way we did with our attorneys.
Yeah, and I'm happy to learn from Mr. Green's legal advice or anything on this. Because we want to do a good job of giving our community their.
I'll plug this all into ChatGTP
There
and
you
see what happens.
So we hit all 5.
Hit all 5. Okay. Okay. Keep it going, I guess.
we'll now move on to action items. Need a motion to approve the 2023 levy resolution as presented.
I move that the Board of Education approve the 2023 levy resolution as presented.
Support.
This is the levy that Ms. Kowalski presented to the board on November 14th. We have not added anything to that, and with your approval, we will file it tomorrow.
Any further discussion?
Mr. Rudd?
Yes.
Dr. Cross?
Yes.
Mr. Neely?
Yes.
Mr. Roth?
Yes.
Mr. Breaker?
Yes.
Dr. Crawl?
Yes.
For this next item, I just wanted, if I could talk before you make a motion to approve, just a few things about the process. So this next item is about approving us to go out for bonds, which we know we've talked about at length, not to exceed $6 million for a 10-year term. Just to kind of give you a little bit of information about the process and the next steps. Yesterday, Ms. Kowalski and I participated in what's called a bond rating call. We're basically Standard & Poor's, maybe you've heard of Standard & Poor's is an agency, an entity that establishes independent credit ratings on large entities like school districts or corporations. And so it rates how good of a risk are we as Morton School District. And through that process, which was a learning process for me, they are very thorough. They check into everything about you. It's a very lengthy conversation. We provided tons of fiscal information, but not just fiscal information about me personally and Ms. Kowalski personally, about our educations, our longevity here in the district. Tons of financial information, and they digest all of that and boil it down into a rating. They looked at our board goals. So they looked at the goals that are at the top of our agenda. We talked specifically about finance and facilities, and I talked in great deal about the fiscal, kind of the conservative nature of the historical conservative nature of our board, our community, how we've renovated buildings instead of building new, and how we use our fund balances to do some of those things, and how we're responsible, basically. So that was a lot of the discussion, in addition to the financial information. The business team was very busy gathering information for this and providing it, and Ms. Kowalski did a fantastic job leading the presentation. She was the point person for that. I mostly sat and watched and chimed in a little bit, but just want to give her kudos. She just did a fantastic job on that presentation. The person that you met a few meetings back from PMA, who's helping us through this process, when we concluded and S&P got off the call, he said, Lisa knocked it out of the park. So just a fantastic job, and he's very optimistic about our bond rating. So as you might guess, the higher you're rated in terms of low risk, the better interest rates you'll get on your bonds, just like you might picture with any kind of borrowing, even for a used car loan or something. So that's what this process is. We're looking forward to hearing how low an interest rate we could get from that, and or how high our credit rating is, so we can get a low interest rate. And then that low interest rate will also not only determine how much interest we pay, it'll really determine how much we can borrow. So we're going to maximize that based on our whatever interest rate we get. It won't exceed 6 million, so that's why I'm explaining, okay, so what's with the no less than or no more than 6 million? It's really a variable on how much we're going to get to borrow based on our interest rate, which is based on our rating. So that's, in a nutshell, that's the process. And the next steps, so with the board's approval tonight, on January 2nd, these bonds will be publicized. They'll be posted, investors can start to look at them and make determinations. They'll have our financial rating there, they'll have all the terms that we're asking for, and a bunch of information about us that they can look at themselves. So that's January 2nd. And then on the 9th, that's kind of when the bids are sort of due, or that's when they make determinations about the best deal that we can get in terms of an interest rate. So that really will determine who's buying our bonds and for what rate. And then once that's determined, there's a closing, just like you would have for a house, I guess you'd say, is then they're gonna write us a check, and that's on January 25th. So January 2nd, they go out, January 9th, we determine who the big winner is, and then the 25th, we get cut a check for just under $6 million for these projects. So anyway, just wanted to kind of walk through that process and just thank Ms. Kowalski and the whole business department for putting together a fantastic presentation. We definitely put our best foot forward in this process. And I think it's the first time our district's gone through this type of process, which we think is the best way to get the best rate and save the district the most money. Any comments, Lisa, about that?
No, we did a great job.
Oh, you did. You did a great job. All right.
With that, we'll have a motion for the Board of Education to approve the bond resolution for the district to issue working cash fund bonds in the amount not to exceed $6 million for multiple capital facility projects.
I move that the Board of Education approve the bond resolution for the district to issue working cash fund bonds in an amount not to exceed $6 million for multiple capital facility projects.
Support.
Any further discussion?
Mr. Roth?
Yes.
Dr. Cross?
Yes.
Mr. Neely?
Yes.
Mr. Rudd?
Yes.
Mr. Breaker?
Yes.
And Dr. Crawl?
Yes.
With that, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
Support. That's the smallest consent agenda, I think.
Don't complain. Dr. Cross?
Yes.
Mr. Rudd? Dr. Crawl?
Yes.
Mr. Neely?
Yes.
Mr. Roth?
Yes.
And Mr. Breaker?
Yes.
Thank you.
This evening, we will have no closed session, so I guess have a Merry Christmas. We get to be the 19th, but we won't be with our many viewers, so we'll need a motion to adjourn.
Darn it.
I'll take a
Amelia,
second.
I'll second it.
All right.
You're so fast, Tom.
All right. And everybody? Woo-hoo.
Aye.
Thank you.
You awake back there?
Being a week. Yeah. I didn't know that. Cupcake. Take them home for your kiddos.